Some people think that our heart is our most vital organ. Actually, it's not. Our brain is. Our mind is a maze, a labyrinth of experiences from birth that creates the reality we live. God designed us to thrive on earth with joy through human interaction and relationships that shape and mold us. But what happens when those interactions break us and shatter the hope and the innocence we once held? How do we find our way home? How do we pick up the pieces? Can we ever be made new? There is hope for the brokenhearted because our Savior and Creator designed us to repair. We just need to be shown the way. Join us on a journey as we learn how to take Jesus to our past, restore what was lost, and bring healing to the fractured soul.
Hey guys, welcome back to Resistance Chicks. We're your hosts, Leah and Michelle. It's Tuesday, which means it's Healing for the Fractured Soul night, and have we got a show for you. You know, in the truther movement, we tend to throw out phrases like psychopath, sociopath, there's another one besides narcissist. I feel like there's one more that's like super, crazy. Besides Machiavellian, that's a little bit different. We tend to throw these phrases out because you see people like a Klaus Schwab or a Hillary Clinton or whatever, and you're like, well, clearly I don't exactly know what a psychopath is. I don't know what a sociopath is, but I know that they probably are it, right? They are the kind that could like order a hit job, not think twice, right? Mob bosses. These are the people that we apply these phrases to. Mm-hmm. Here's the problem. It's not so sociopaths and psychopaths are not limited to the big famous people that we know.
Right, exactly.
They walk amongst us.
Yeah.
They work in and out of society, and they look like fully functioning members of society. That's the whole point. My entire life as a kid, I didn't really understand what a psychopath was or a sociopath was. I just knew that like Jeffrey Dahmer would probably be put in the category. And usually it's the people that got caught that are in jail that we apply these things to. And so you think to yourself, well, of course they're not convincing because I can see it because they got convicted. And now Charles Manson is spending the rest of his life in jail and has the chair, right? But how do these people get all of these people to follow them? A lot of times, especially when you look at mass murderers, they are cult leaders. Not always, but like they can be because they're so convincing. So Leah sends us this video this week, yesterday. And I watched it and I was just so fascinating. And Leah's like, this is SK, like to the T. And I watched it and I was like, oh my gosh. The thing is that, Leah, if you don't mind me stealing a punchline or two here, because I think it's important for the intro for you guys to understand something. And Leah, you were telling me about this on our dog walk. They even convince their parole officers. They actually thrive. Like the harder the challenge, the more self-aware that you think that you are at your surrounding, at not being taken, at being able to see, the better of a person that you are, the more good old fashioned, you're just that kind of person, they get their biggest kick, thrive, high off of fooling you into making you think that they are something other than what they are. So they will convince the parole officer that they're reformed. They'll convince the pastor that they found Jesus, right? They love that. They thrive off of that. They get their biggest joy off of convincing other people that they are something better or different than, and they aren't anything really. All these people, they find themselves in positions where they're like, oh, like Leah's got a story from one of these ladies. Like this guy convinced this woman that he was a doctor, right? Completely convinced her.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, they also get their victims in so deep that even when the victim finds out that they've been lied to, they will defend them. They'll defend them.
Yeah.
And so I think that there's this gigantic misnomer that a psychopath and a sociopath walks around, and for the podcast listeners, forgive me, with this, like, these beady eyes, like, I'm just so crazy, like Jack Nicklaus, right? Like in all of the movies that he's ever played a psychopath in, right? Like, you know them, you see them, they're a psychopath, they're a sociopath, they walk around with a sign on their forehead going, I'm crazy, okay? There is a difference between crazy people that manifest as crazy in society and sociopaths and psychopaths. As a matter of fact, most sociopaths and psychopaths go through life without people really identifying that that's who they are, because they're that good. They are the master deceivers, the master deceivers. And so, you know, Lee and I had the privilege, and I will use that term, to do these episodes on SK this year. And the emails that we got, the responses in the hundreds and hundreds, like, you guys were like, thank you so much. I'm so glad to be awake to this, because you, like, once you can see it, we gave you a pattern, you recognize the pattern and how it affected you. You're able to wake up, get out of the cult, leave. But then there are the people that couldn't. They're still there. They're still trapped. I got a message from somebody the other day, still trapped. Because they get you hook, line, and sinker, because you can't see it, because in order to see it, you have to admit that you were deceived.
Yeah.
And that is so hard for a lot of people to admit, because a lot of people walk in a lot of pride. And you shouldn't, not just because you shouldn't walk in pride, but they walk in a lot of pride that they know people. I mean, how many times have you said it? Have you heard other people say it? I am such a good judge of character. I can see right through people. And people, like, they really walk in that level of pride. I don't mind telling you, I've probably felt that way a lot of times. Unfortunately, no one, and I added this to Leah's description at the end, nobody is immune. Nobody is safe. And I put this, I said, no matter who you are, everyone is at risk. Pastors, parole officers, teachers, even therapists, even these people that actually know Machiavellianism, they know sociopathy, they know psychopathy, they know it all. They get it, or psychopathy, however you want to say it. They understand it, and they're still at risk. Okay, because these people are that good, and they would actually thrive on convincing a therapist or a psychologist or a psychiatrist that these people are not the classic. They're that cunning. And so we have to throw out this idea that we're going to be able to spot one. Now, tonight, we're going to give you tools to help you, but you have to come to the table like the rest of us have, going, you know what? I don't know everything. I don't know all of this. I need to know it. I need to be able to be aware. I need to be able to spot these things in people. Okay. Because here's the thing, and I'm going to toss this to Leah, because she does have a phenomenal show for us tonight. We want to try to end a little bit earlier than normal, so it won't be a 3-hour show like it has been. But when you hear these stories, and I think Leah's got some that she's going to play tonight, the person finds themselves in a too good to be true situation where they knew my soul. They knew, like, they shared the same likes, the same desires, the same dreams, the same past, the same passions. Like, I was meant to be with this person because we just connected on every level, right? Here's the problem. You know, that actually does exist. You can find somebody that you connect with on every level who shares a lot of the same dreams and a lot of the same pasts. And so there's that can be a real thing. Most of the time it's not, but it can be a real thing. But a lot of times it can be your big giant red flag to, I'm being played by a psychopath. Like, and so I don't want you guys to go into life jaded. Now, I'm not talking about like a first date. This can be your friends. These could be your boss. This could be anybody. This could be your pastor. This could be the podcast that you listen to, like Bards FM. It's not Resistance Chicks, because Leah and I have enough presence of mind to regularly question whether we're insane. And we actually come to you guys and say, you know what? We know we're crazy. I tell that to people all the time. You know we cray. At least I admit it. I'm crazy. Okay? You're crazy too. That's why you're here. But my point is, you can be taken. You can be taken by these people. We all can be. And I would say every single person listening to the sound of my voice has been taken or convinced by a psychopath or a sociopath at some point in their life, because they walk amongst us in droves, way more than you think. Okay. And they thrive on what they do and convincing you that they're other than what they are, that they're larger than life. And so tonight we're going to dig into a lot of this stuff. And I love Leah's title here, When a Psychopath Comes Calling, because they target you. And especially if you're a really good person, if you're a kind person, if you're a caring person, if you're an empathetic person, and then also if you've got trauma in your past, because then they know that they can really identify you and they can play you because you have a hole in your heart. So please, please, please grab your pen, grab your paper, take notes. And speaking of pen and paper, we are going to be doing our first of the month giveaway for the 1st of December for our either Armor of God collection or Oil of Joy collection tonight. So if you have not won one of our collections, by all means, please send me an email at massfaith33@gmail.com. That's one S, MASFAITH 33@gmail.com. I'll announce this a couple more times throughout the show. We're going to be doing a giveaway for the book, the Prayers That Shake Heaven. Is that what it's called? And so we're doing 2 giveaways tonight. So please send me an email. And if you have one of our collections, I think that would be fine for you to enter just for the book. Just put in there, just book, at the email. And at the end of tonight's show, we'll do a little mail call and we will do that drawing for tonight. So Leah, take it away, Sam.
So yeah, this show was inspired by a podcast I watched, just mesmerized. And I was like, well, I don't know. We're going to check the YouTube strikes because they're going to play kind of a lot of it. About psychopaths. And I really toyed with the idea of Scott Casterson, the psychopath. Okay. But then actually, because I do believe he is one, that I don't want to put his name in the title, because the end of every psychopath is that
they murder their victims. Okay, not every one of them, but they don't let them go.
They seek revenge.
They seek revenge, yeah.
It's actually not funny.
It's not
funny.
Not
a lot of these psychopaths, it's very dangerous. And I do want to be serious about this episode.
I am super serious.
I really can't laugh about Scott Kesterson because he's a very dangerous person.
Yes, he is.
And I'm not trying. I don't want to scare anybody. And I don't want. Here's the thing. There's many reasons why I'm not doing shows about this guy. Okay, one is that he is a psychopath, in my opinion, and I believe he's dangerous.
So to that, in a more serious note, I don't mind switching to serious. There are many people who reached out to us and told us their stories, but they were too terrified to let us tell them.
But they don't know why. Why are you so scared? I didn't think that their story was that big of a deal.
Right.
One guy was just supposed to start up teaching people how to do money right. And he's absolutely terrified to release emails and going back and forth, and was like, I don't want anybody to know. Don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody. But what's very interesting is the victims of these psychopaths do want people to know their story when they have been pushed away by the abuser. Okay. When you're still in the circle, and it's very hard to get out of the circle, like, you don't leave, you're pushed out. When it comes to these realms of what you would call antisocial behavior, if you're in and this person has targeted you, you're not leaving. You're pushed out. You're not leaving of your own free will, because they got you. They know how to get you. They've already learned. They spend time learning you. They study you. They stalk you. That's the difference between, some people will say, well, what's the difference between a narcissist, a sociopath, and a psychopath? Well, from what I've been understanding in some of the research I've been doing, is that sociopath is actually an outdated term. Despite its use in the media and popular culture, psychologists say that sociopathy is an informal, outdated term used to refer to someone living with antisocial personality disorder. This is not that is not a good label.
No, that's good.
Because antisocial behavior, I'm thinking they don't go around people, that people can pick up that they're not a nice person.
Right.
There's a lot. So here's the thing. I would say narcissists are antisocial, but the way that psychology uses antisocial behavior, what they mean is lacking empathy. You don't care about society. Okay. It doesn't mean that you don't live in society. It doesn't mean that society doesn't love you. So in one of these cases, it was a minister, a high level church member who was a serial killer with a wife and children. And you'll see this, like a lot of men with wife and children, like the Golden Gate Killer. He killed a bunch of women. Then he married. He killed one more woman when his wife was pregnant at 7 months. He killed another woman when his wife was pregnant at 7 months again. And then when she had her the third daughter, he stopped killing. And so this particular psychopath, which, we can just say demon possession, I guess would be just as fine. He grew out of needing to actually kill. But when they went to go search for his home, and I think this is the same guy, it might be the same guy, it might be a different guy. It was on the same podcast. There were all these pictures of women who were dead, dismembered.
Oh my gosh.
Not dismembered, but like murdered. It was all the same woman. It was his wife.
Oh!
He got his wife to pose in these pictures because she felt that by going along with it, he could keep his
fantasies,
desires under control without killing people. Now, the 3 daughters of the Golden Gate Killer, when they found out that their father was a serial killer, they lost it.
Oh my gosh.
They had no idea.
Oh my gosh.
So I watched a video of a woman who said that she's a sociopath. And she says she was born that way. So I think that in some of these terms, they are the humans that use them. We are not all on the same page.
Okay.
And from what I've been reading, like I have one psychologist here who's going to say, this is the exact difference between sociopath and psychopath. I have an article here that says we don't even use sociopath anymore. And I've got a video of a woman who says, I'm a sociopath, but we don't use sociopath anymore. But here's me. And she said that when she was a child, and a lot of it is diagnosed as a child, she said she got really, really angry at a little girl in line at school. And she stabbed her with a pencil. And she said at that moment, she received a rush of euphoria. It felt so good. It felt good to hurt.
Ugh.
It felt good.
Our uncle, not the one that lives with us, the other one, the bad one, is like that.
Our uncle put poison ivy all over a young boy in the neighborhood, knowing that he was allergic, severely allergic to it, and tied him to a flagpole, and he had to go to the hospital. And he was euphoric about that. He did not feel remorse about that. I have an aunt who takes advantage, but feels no remorse. So some of this is actually, unfortunately, genetic, in that one psychologist I was listening to says you can see that a psychopath does not really have an amygdala, like has no feelings. They have to fake empathy. They have to, it's called fronting, where they see how other people act. They see how other people care. They see how other people cry. And so they do it.
You know what I noticed? So if I may, and I know you got a whole show here, but like all this stuff about SK just keeps coming to my mind, right? How he could cry at the drop of a hat. Like he would get emotional and cry at like everything. It's like, no, it's too much. Tone it down.
So what you'll see,
like tone it down. You're crying too much.
in some of these videos I watched,
like
some of these serial
normally.
killers, like there was this one killer who killed his wife and children, and he's in and I'll probably play this, in the interrogation room, and the woman is saying, you have not seen your daughters for 2 days. I have not seen you cry. Why are you not showing any emotion? She pressed him farther. She said, if I lost my child in the retail store, I would be losing it. You're not showing any emotion. And he starts to go like this. Well, I hope they're found. So once you remind them, like Ted Bundy, it was the same thing. Somebody said, you're not showing any emotion. And he goes like this. Well, And so they start to show emotion when you say and you remind them, oh, I need to put on emotion. Okay. The rest of us, hopefully, have empathy. Okay. So I was listening to another podcast with the guy who found the Golden Gate killer. It was a cold case when he got to it in the early 90s, like 1994. And the last murder was in 86. And he started to investigate more. It turns out that this Golden Gate killer was on the police force of the town over from the murders that he was committing. And so it was, and he would do things very interestingly, like with his victims. You would think that when you're giving the police a police report, you're going to tell the police what the kidnapper, the murderer around you has said. And some of the victims would give these accounts. The thing of it is he would do things to throw everybody off. So one woman, he asked one woman, where's your husband? She said, in Dearborn. And he said, I think it was Dearborn, whatever, something like that. And he goes, oh, well, where's that? That was the town where he was a police officer.
Oh, okay.
So he was using that as to throw off.
And he sent
that he was from around there.
Right.
So these guys are cold and they're calculating and they blend in with society. Like the Golden Gate killer wasn't even found and convicted until 2018.
That's crazy.
His last murder was in 1986. And his kids, one daughter was an ER doctor.
No.
These were they're high functioning society people.
See, and I guess that's what that really gets me about.
So there, these three girls, had zero idea that their dad was a serial murderer that knew how to lie at the drop of a hat, knew how to manipulate, knew how to get into people's heads.
So when people come to me and this hasn't happened really, it only happened a couple of times during the process, but like no, I really know him. I know him. He's a good person. SK. And I'm laughing, but not laughing. My heart's actually breaking because I'm like, no, you don't. And so if these three girls who grow up thinking that they have this dad that they love, and then they find out that 3 decades ago he was a serial murderer.
And
like if anybody should know someone, you would think it would be your 3 daughters. Mm-hmm. So I guess I'm not trying to again make you guys jaded and just say you can't ever trust yourself or trust the people in your life. Okay. But that's where the Holy Spirit comes in. Okay?
Well, there are a lot of really good ways to kind of spot it.
That's good.
And one of them is very simple. They exalt themselves and present themselves as being better or having more skills than they actually possess. And so I would tell you, watch out for anyone that gives you their resume. Watch out for the people that tell you the amazing stories of their life.
Like a verbal resume.
Watch out for those people. I don't trust the people who go around saying, I'm awesome. I did this. So a psychopath has a highly elevated view of themselves.
So do narcissists. And sometimes they're right. Like they talk about all the things that they've done and they do it and they really have.
So
they're just
here's
narcissistic
the difference
about it.
A lot of times between a narcissist and a psychopath. A narcissist actually wants people's approval.
Right.
They want to go in and they want people to approve of them. Mm-hmm. Whereas a psychopath doesn't need your approval. Doesn't need it. They have a sense of themselves. They don't know who they are. But they don't need your approval, okay? They're cold and they're calculating. Whereas a lot of people are just not going to like a narcissist.
So
because you enter into a room and all they can do, they can't help themselves, is talk about themselves.
I'm going to put almost every single Reawaken America Tour speaker in that category. They're not sociopaths. They're not psychopaths. They're narcissistic. And every time we interview them and they come on our show, and God bless their souls too, and many of them I love very much.
We all have some narcissistic tendencies.
And that was the lady said that, but some of them have it way bigger than others. So what I mean is these doctors and these people, they come up and they're like, I did this and 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 I did this. And they say it, and they did all those things. They really did. So there's a difference between that and then the the psychopath who says they did all those things and they didn't.
Right. Yeah. There is that difference for sure.
Leah, I have big glaring names going in my head right now, which I will not say on the show. Leah knows what I'm
Every
talking about.
compelling true crime story grapples with the fundamental question, why? When we encounter the chilling actions of a serial killer or calculated con artist, our minds quickly search for explanations, desperate to make sense of the incomprehensible. In media and popular culture, we also hear the terms psychopath and sociopath used in connection with serial criminals. Yet they're widely misunderstood, often used interchangeably to describe anyone lacking empathy or remorse. But the reality is far more complex. Understanding the different characteristics and patterns associated with psychopathy and sociopathy can provide valuable insight into the complexities of mental health, criminal psychology, and the key factors that shape human behavior. So what's the truth about psychopaths versus sociopaths? Are they born or are they made? And what makes identifying them so difficult? Despite its sociopath, what is a sociopath? Despite its use in the media and popular culture, psychologists say that sociopathy is an informal, outdated term used to refer to someone living with antisocial personality disorder. ASPD is an official diagnosis listed in the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Health Disorders. Now, listen, I'm going to tell you that I put these diagnoses, I hold them with an open hand because a lot of people cross over these things like borderline personality disorder, dissociative identity disorder. There's a lot of crossover, and so it muddies the water and makes things confusing. However, when you break something apart and you can say these characteristics may not describe all of you, but they describe part of you.
Yeah.
They don't describe all of a person, but they describe part of a person. So it's very interesting. The pattern of behavior is the same in a set. A set of patterns come together and they get a name. That's it. It's a set of patterns. And so we're going to put together a set of patterns because these patterns, when they come together like a puzzle, they all go together. So when you can see that A and B go together and then C and B go together, then A and C go together. And that helps us to kind of get good diagnoses, good understanding, so that maybe even we can help ourselves, we can help our family members. And because the treatment for some of these things is different. For a psychopath, the treatment is jail. Because there's not a lot to be done. For somebody with borderline personality disorder that's created when you're a child, that might be something I'm going to go over next week. That's actually very common and the easiest to treat. When you have a high emotional outburst and you have maybe some abandonment syndrome, fear of abandonment, you get really angry and then you feel really bad. So that borderline personality is way different because there's you're living as a normal life and then you're triggered and your emotions are very high. Then there are people with post-traumatic stress disorder, which is like one particular instance, like maybe you were in a fire or, you were in a mall where there was a shooting and you have post-traumatic stress disorder. Complex post-traumatic stress disorder is when you're living with the Taliban for years, or you're being molested over a long period of time, or you're living with an alcoholic. Complex post-traumatic stress disorder is when your amygdala, it never gets to come down. So you're in a mall, there's a shooting. It's a very traumatic thing, but you're out of that situation and you can begin to heal. Complex post-traumatic stress disorder is when those things are happening to you all the time or often. And you're never able to leave that situation. So it's complex, meaning your body doesn't know how now to react to situations. There are people who are born highly sensitive. And so if you were born highly sensitive and you were not taught how to use these emotions, and you need to understand, if you've ever been told that you're just too sensitive, if you've ever been told that you have too many emotions or your emotions are too high, you need to lean into that and you need to say, I'm not broken, but I can heal. Okay. So you're not broken. You could just be born highly sensitive. And so if you're a highly sensitive child that means you're actually pretty empathetic. The problem is that highly sensitive children are usually highly sensitive to negative emotions. If you're a magnet, you're going to pick up a lot of metal.
Yeah.
And if your parents and your grandparents aren't around you to where you're constantly safe and you're growing, and I'm safe. I know how to deal with these emotions. I know how, okay, it's a good thing that I'm highly sensitive. That means I'm very sensitive to other people's feelings. It means when somebody's crying, I feel that. Okay, so you need to embrace being highly sensitive. But the problem is if you don't understand how to use that to be a blessing to yourself and a blessing to others, okay, then you're just going to be stuck feeling a lot of emotions a lot of times. Okay, these are what I would consider in the normal category. I'm normal. I'm okay. I can be helped. I can be healed. That is the essence of hopefully all of you who are watching now.
That's good.
If we have psychopaths, God's coming for you. No, I'm not even kidding, because the psychopaths to me are those like demon possessed people. They lack any sort of feeling or empathy. I do believe that Jesus can come, but I was listening to a woman say that even those psychopaths who meet God in prison, when they are released, they will go back and do the same thing. So they never met God. They never got radically saved. They never got filled with the Holy Spirit. Can God change everybody? Absolutely, he can. Okay. But we are talking about needing a bona fide physical miracle when we're talking about psychopaths. And it can happen. Okay.
You know what I think about is News Unit. We had this stalker channel early on in our show, like 2018. And they found us, and at first they were kind of friendly. Like they wanted to like our show. And then all of a sudden there was like 3 hosts, and they were like sloppy, gross men in their basement. It was just weird.
And they would constantly pick apart our show and pick apart us.
They made their show
all about
picking
us.
apart our show. And they even made rape threats and death threats. And then we had another viewer at that time who was like, dude, I'm just going to contact the FBI. We were not going to do that at the time. And I did end up having to talk to the FBI because they called me about it. I think that the FBI must have contacted these people because it stopped.
It was in their show. Like they said it on the internet.
It was open. Yeah. But the idea like that they could laugh and joke about raping us and killing us and stuff. It was so weird. To me, that's what you would expect. See, here's the thing. That's what we all would expect when we think psychopath, right? The problem is that is, I'm sure it fits into some sort of category, but these people that we're going to talk about here tonight are not the kind that will just openly say the crazy thing. They're just going to do it. So I actually fear less the people that would say it out loud than the people that like pretend like there's something and then the next thing you know.
Yeah. So psychopaths tend to be highly manipulative and charming, taking steps to blend in to society and avoid detection. While they can be impulsive, they typically employ a more cold, calculated approach to their actions.
Long game.
They're less likely to be reactive and can keep up a facade of normalcy for long periods. Sociopaths, on the other hand, tend to be more erratic, impulsive, and chaotic. News Unit. They may experience emotional outbursts, including fits of rage or anger, making it more difficult for them to hide their antisocial tendencies and to fit into society. Okay? Research often suggests that psychopaths generally lack emotions, including empathy and a moral conscience, and may struggle to recognize emotions in others. However, they can imitate emotions to manipulate others, making them particularly dangerous in positions of power or influence. They think that you're crying because you're manipulating. It's a strange way that they view the world. That said, research into notorious murderers with psychopathic personalities such as Jeffrey Dahmer and Denise Nielsen found that a key driver for their violent behavior was pain, loneliness, and a deranged attempt to connect with their victims, though there are some possible exceptions. Experts generally agree that sociopaths, unlike psychopaths, do have a sense of right and wrong, but will act out against them and try to rationalize their actions. According to research, psychopaths struggle to form healthy attachments to people and are more likely to have an avoidant attachment style. Ironically, psychopaths may find it easy to attract partners because of their charm and talent for manipulation and may feel the need to be loved. However, their inability to feel, to express, and to recognize a wide range of emotions, coupled with their drive for power, can make it difficult for them to form meaningful relationships. They may even be saddened by their behavior because they understand its role in isolating them from even others even more. The Golden Gate Bridge serial killer would often be seen crying, the victim said. They do get sad. They do get angry, but they don't have, and they can have a little bit of empathy. Like I guess I was listening to the one guy say, I'm going to bring him up in a minute, that, one of his victims said that, his gag was too tight, so he would loosen it. Like, they have a little bit of empathy. That's why he was able to raise 3 daughters. So they can turn it on and off. To me, that denotes a multiple personality that, came from somewhere. Unlike psychopaths, some sociopaths can form meaningful attachments with a particular individual or group, but these connections lack depth, can be difficult to maintain, and be restricted by their overfocus on their own needs. Mm-hmm. Are sociopaths or psychopaths born or made? It's still unclear. They don't know whether people are genetically predisposed to become sociopaths and psychopaths. Because sociopaths tend to have a conscience, their behavior is often strongly linked to environmental factors such as traumatic early experiences or head injuries. Research suggests that psychopathy, on the other hand, may in part actually be caused by genetics. For example, the parts of the brain responsible for regulating emotion and impulsiveness have been shown to be underdeveloped in some people with psychopathy. That said, evidence suggests that environmental factors actually may play a role. For example, being raised in a poor neighborhood. And I told Michelle, I heard a story of a Black woman who got on a bus, and she didn't have money to get on the bus, but she had 5 boxes of Popeye's chicken. And she asked the bus driver if she could get on the bus. She said, I don't have money for a ticket. And this guy on the bus is telling the story. And he says...
The guy or the bus driver?
There's a guy on the bus.
Okay.
And she says, this big old Black lady, and she's got 5 boxes of Popeye's chicken, and she eats the whole thing, but she doesn't have money for a bus ticket. When it's time for her to get off the bus, she goes crazy and throws these empty boxes of chicken all over.
Like chicken bones.
All over the bus.
That's nasty.
Like, she's either a sociopath, she's a psychopath. She has no emotions. And when you look at the Black community, these are made, not born. Mm-hmm. The Black community had less divorce than the white community. When you start to remove the father, you're underdeveloping emotional development. You're not teaching children how to have empathy. They have the survival of the fittest. And I see a lot of these inner city kids turn into gang members, turn into, they lack empathy. They lack the ability to think, to feel, and they become thieves. It's a
So you know where else you see it? And we've known several people who, because they have such big hearts, they were foster parents.
Yes.
And they end up with these children that, in my humble opinion, are psychopaths. And they cycle back into the program because the people can't handle it anymore. Like they think that you can just love a child to health. If the child has not developed these types of traits, then you actually their brain. So borderline personality disorder, Leah tells me, is one of the easiest things to heal. Mm-hmm. So I believe that that's one of those ones you could probably love a child through borderline personality disorder. But if this child has now entered into sociopathy or psychopathy, depending on how you want to say it, that's when only, and I don't want to sound like nihilistic here, the power of God and a miracle is going to heal this child. And so what does society do with the fact that we are creating? To answer the question, in my opinion, I do believe there is a genetic component, but I think that the bigger issue are the ones that are created. Mm-hmm. Because as a society, we could avoid this. Our society just, unfortunately, because we have these broken homes, and if you don't have 2 parents and,
we're talking about way different personalities. A psychopath has charm, blends into society. The big Black girl with the chicken ain't blending into society. Right. She has a different mental disorder.
No, but and I'm trying to be very careful here because I don't want to bring up the one story that I'm thinking of. Leah knows because I love this family and they watch our show. But sometimes your children do have charm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
these children.
Yeah,
that
well,
you're dealing
children
with.
can, but I'm saying by and large, when you go downtown and you're walking past, they're going to bump into you. You don't want to see these people. You don't like them.
Right.
Then they don't like you, and you can
Now, you
feel
said
it.
that is oftentimes kind of a difference between, even though we're not using sociopaths anymore, they
Like
say
a sociopath
the
and a
sociopath
psychopath.
is the kind that like they've got the issue, but they don't blend in. And then you've got the one that blends in. And so my point is that, we're talking about adults, but unfortunately, like, what do you do with the kids in foster care who literally have already been turned into a psychopath
I guess
or a sociopath?
Those are good questions, but I'm looking at a lot of these behaviors, and at least as they grow older, they're able to be charming, even as they get older. But in their younger years, they will set things on fire. They will hurt animals, things like that.
Right.
All right.
But I do believe that you can heal. I mean, our friend Jimmy,
used to do,
and he's
crazy
completely
things.
set
He used
free.
to put cats in a mailbox,
and blow them up.
and he's filled with the power of God. It's important to note that television portrayals of psychopaths and sociopaths as inherently violent distort the clinical reality, and not all people that are sociopaths and psychopaths are actually violent criminals. One study even found that some people with ASPD and good impulse control have gone on to be more successful than their peers. Your CEOs, your billionaires, your millionaires are most likely psychopaths, because the only way they can get there is by lacking empathy and feeling.
You got to be able to walk all over the little guy.
You do things to look good. You do things to charm people. The crazy thing about these psychopaths is they will get people to defend them. They are able to truly get people to love them, to fall in love with them. They can get the parole officers on their side. They can get people. I mean, O.J. Simpson.
No, it's so true.
O.J. Simpson has gotten people to defend him.
If it don't fit, you must quit.
They got people to defend it. There are people who still believe that he's innocent. He's a psychopath. He killed his wife. Okay,
he raped women.
Did he?
Purportedly.
I didn't know about that. Charles Manson, Ted Bundy, Bernie Madoff, the banker. There's the
I don't know those other names.
I don't know these other people. Psychopathy and sociopathy are difficult to diagnose because they're not official clinical diagnosis. Instead, are a part of a spectrum of antisocial personality disorder. Traits associated with these conditions, such as superficial charm, manipulation, lack of empathy, impulsivity, can be easily masked, making accurate assessment challenging. So repeatedly being deceitful, repeatedly breaking the law, being impulsive or incapable of planning ahead, being irritable, aggressive, reckless disregard for their safety or safety of others, being consistently irresponsible, lack of remorse. So there are some treatments, cognitive behavioral therapy, and even medicine, but it's an interesting road. Let's put it that way. All right. Where is it? We're going to go over here. I think chilling. This is from Science Focus BBC. Chillingly cool, collected, cunning, and clever. Is this the perfect description of a psychopath? For most people, Hollywood movies and popular culture generate such images of psychopathy. Be it Anthony Hopkins or Hannibal Lecter in The Silence of the Lambs, or The Psychos, Norman Bates. Such characters dominate the public's perception of the psychopath. But how close is this popular image to reality? The term psychopath originated in the 1800s from the Greek word psyche and pathos, which means sick mind or suffering soul. Psychopaths might be better conceptualized as people who are dissociated, says criminologist Robert Blakely. In other words, people who are detached from their own emotions and the emotions of other people. Consequently, they just don't feel much. If they see a person in distress, psychopaths don't feel the distress themselves, so they have less emotional incentive not to harm people. Blakely believes that this dissociation can arise from inheriting an oversensitive perceptual system. If you're very sensitive to visible signs of distress and anger in other people, then seeing those signs could become overwhelming, sometimes for sensitive children.
Well, scripturally, we could look at the Good Samaritan, that story specifically. So you see that, several people passed by the man in the ditch, but it wasn't until the Good Samaritan saw him that he, decided to help. So, we do have actually scriptural basis for heartlessness.
That's good. Yeah. One way to identify a psychopath is to study patterns in their relationships. Psychopaths generally cannot sustain long-term relationships. What they will do, they have short periods of intensity followed by detachment, and they tend to define their close interactions. While in a relationship, their behavior is likely to be highly manipulative and selfish, and their needs always come first. Not all psychopaths are violent criminals, but most present a threat to our welfare at some level, to one's self-esteem, peace of mind, health, financial being. There are many theories behind why psychopaths are the way they are. Some believe it is nature, genetics, or that cause psychopathy. Other things it's related to environmental
and
factors.
We're going to, on Resistance Chicks, throw in another thing.
Yeah.
And it's demonic.
Yeah.
It's demonic. I believe that you can't have any of this stuff without a demonic influence.
Exactly. So I want to start with this one. No. Is that the one? I think it is. Yeah, I think this is the one. Let me make sure it's the right title. It's the same. Go ahead, play it.
Well, hang on, I don't have it up yet. I wasn't even thinking about getting your tabs up ahead of time.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. So in watching this particular video and learning about psychopaths, I want you to just be led by the Holy Spirit and recognize that while we are trying to diagnose and find real answers, we're not professionals. I'm not here to diagnose anybody.
No, but we want you to be able to diagnose the people in your life as dangerous. If that's what it's coming to, right? That's the whole point. All right, let's see. Here we are.
Okay, let's play this one first. Most psychopaths have these 3 traits. Oh, you can play this one. That was not the one by this. You can play that one.
Do we need to refresh it?
Maybe.
To spot a psychopath, and I am pretty attuned to this now, and I guarantee that you know at least one if you know 100 people. In fact, you probably know around 3. And certain jobs do kind of entice them in anywhere where there's a hierarchy of power. So policing, academia, the medicine field, think of surgeons, pilots, anywhere where you can get a lot of power over other people. They're often very charming, very charismatic, but ultimately self-entitled, and they have 0 empathy for other people. And if you know one, my advice is to spot a psychopath. And
so again, just while this thought is coming to my mind, and this is not a show about SK, but unfortunately he's the, in my humble opinion, I don't even care about being sued for libel at this point. When I look at the heartlessness of like the emails that I got that just left me reduced into tears because of people saying this is what he did to me, like it hurt, and he did not care at all. He fronted that he cared for all these other people, but the vast majority he just did not care. Like you couldn't do the things that he's done if you actually had a heart and cared. So that's what goes to show, like the rest of us don't have to pretend to care. Right. Sometimes we get too overwhelmed and we miss being able to focus. But if we actually could focus on what was in front of us, we would care. Right. But like this person hears the story and doesn't care, we're having some issues tonight. Let me refresh.
Oh, of course we are.
When I've assessed children, adolescents, and adults for psychopathy, there are certain things I look for that suggest to me the person is genuinely psychopathic that I think could be useful for people to know. The first one is that they tend to be antisocial across a whole range of domains.
And by antisocial doesn't mean that like they just don't get along with people. What she's gonna say,
right? They've cheated on romantic partners.
It means when she says antisocial behavior across
cheated in
a bunch of
professional
places,
settings, or maybe in school or in a sports setting. Right? It's not just one thing or one domain. It's you see unethical and antisocial behavior across domains. They tend to show signs they think they're better than other people. They tend to believe that problems in the world are.
This is a really good one. I wish it wouldn't be breaking up.
We probably
always
have
other
too many
people's
tabs
faults.
open,
Other people are dumb. Other people are ignorant.
And I need you to have
other
YouTube
people
up
are
so
easily
that we can be
duped.
monitoring.
And finally, believing that everybody else is just like them underneath. So if somebody
Either one.
It's really frustrating. Do we need to drop a stream?
I don't think
seems
that
to
would help,
believe that
actually.
everybody is actually fundamentally selfish. If they think that's true of people in general, what they're really telling you is what they're like. When I've assessed children, adolescents, and adults for psychopathy, there are certain things I look for that suggest to me the person is genuinely psychopathic, but I think could be useful for people to know. The first one is that they tend to be antisocial across a whole range of domains, right? They've cheated on romantic partners. They've cheated in professional settings, or maybe in school or in a sports setting, right? It's not just one thing or one domain. It's you see unethical and antisocial behavior across domains. They tend to show signs they think they're better than other people. They tend to believe that problems in the world are always other.
Jesus, please help our show get going tonight. We command the demons in the internets to stop trying to stop our show.
Other people's faults. Other people are dumb. Other people are ignorant. Other people are easily duped. And finally, believing that everybody else is just like them underneath. So if somebody seems to believe that everybody is actually fundamentally selfish, if they think that's true of people in general, what they're really telling you is what they're like.
Okay.
When I've assessed,
Can we break that down a little bit?
I am going to break that down. Okay.
There's a couple of things that I really felt like were highlightable there. I guess because I just keep thinking about SK, like how he would always say, like behind your backs, you guys listening to the show, he would talk about how dumb you are, how stupid you are,
So
how
what did
gullible you are.
Let's go over those three things she said. Okay. She said that they think that they are better than everybody else. Mm-hmm. They think that their problems are everybody else's problems. And they think that everybody else is like them and selfish like them. So in there, they really truly think that they are better than everybody else.
Right.
That they're smarter than everybody else.
Right.
And SK, in all of my conversations with him, he is smarter and better than everybody else. And you just think and you nod your head, and because he had a lot of charm. Now, I would talk to like Condi or other people. He charms certain people. Psychopaths target people who they know that have a certain set of characteristics. So in one case, we're going to hear about a psychopath targeted a woman who was a nurse because she has empathy and compassion. Psychopaths need people who are empathetic, who are compassionate, so that they can use that against them. All right. And then they will pretend to be empathetic or compassionate themselves. Like one guy, he pretended to be a doctor, but he wasn't a doctor, to kind of, look, I'm an empathetic person. I'm a good person. He ended up being a psychopath. So in these, when you're dealing with people who are constantly elevating themselves in talk and speech and just kind of railing against everybody else, this person just needs to do this, and I have all the answers for this, and this person just needs to do this, and this person just needs to do this, and they're constantly looking at everybody around them and what they just need to do. Every conversation with us and SK was him talking about somebody and what they needed to do. Pastor Anthony's just this, having affairs. He's a horrible person, blah, 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 blah. Brad, just so you know, he talks horribly about you behind your back. You're just this. He's angry at you. He's yelling at you. He's yelling about you.
But at the same time, then he would also praise them too, which
then
is
he
so
would
weird.
praise them. Yes.
Like they're the greatest. They're this, but then they're this, right?
But I'm better than them. They have to put them up on a pedestal in order to be good enough to be friends with.
Right. So somebody was asking, Katie was asking, who is SK? We're talking about Scott Kesterson of Bards FM. If you have not watched our series that we did earlier this year on that, I highly recommend it for anybody that even knows who he is. And even if you don't, it still gives you an eye-opening glimpse into how these people infiltrate
Con artistry.
Especially the mega movement too. There's a lot that have infiltrated the mega movement. Nick Fuentes is one. He's a complete psychopath. Mm-hmm. And how do these people, Andrew Tate. Now, sometimes you're able to spot them. Like you would think, see, here's the thing. We all think that we're going to be able to spot them like we can spot an Andrew Tate or we can spot a Nick Fuentes. And that's just not true. Like, it's absolutely not true at all.
I would say this, though. I feel that in the realm of life, depending on how big of a psychopath they are, somebody's going to pick up on it. Because like with Andrew Tate, not a lot of people are picking up on it, but but more and more people are picking up on it. Like with Nick Fuentes, some people, a handful of people are saying that he is crazy. This kid's weird.
Right.
Okay. He talks about like being 30 and wanting a 14-year-old wife. Like he's sick. He's sick in the head. He's violent. He's sick in the head. But Tucker Carlson just had him on his show.
Right.
So not being able to call somebody else as a psychopath, like there are people that I don't want to be around because I feel like they're dangerous. Other people just love them. Okay. I think Candace Owens is a little bit cuckoo. I'm not going to put her in either category, but like she will ruin you if you cross her.
Yeah.
There are different ways, like in social media, there are ways to kill people.
Right.
And I believe that social media drives psychopaths to the forefront. And when you see a pylon and a cancellation of somebody, I believe it is driven by a need to like murder. Murder a personality, something like that. Okay, so let's bring up the video. Not this one, the other one with this lady. This one.
All right. I think it's this one.
Mm-hmm. And see how fast we can get her because this is a long one.
And you don't even realize you're doing it. When someone's being gaslit by an expert manipulator, they don't know which way is up. They will love bomb you. They will have a strategic campaign to win your heart. They seek to utterly dominate. If you see it, run.
So Laura, as a criminal analyst who's trained under the New Scotland Yard and the FBI, you actually use a checklist that screens for psychopathy. And if they score over 30, then that proves that yes, they are a psychopath. So what is on that checklist and what are the telltale signs that we need to watch out for?
Yeah, I mean, there are two checklists. There's one that's called the DASH, which I created in the UK, and that's the Domestic Abuse, Stalking and Harassment and Honour-Based Violence Risk Checklist, and that's what is used when there is a report of domestic violence or coercive control or stalking or honour-based violence to police. But actually anyone can use that checklist. It can be used by victims themselves. So that's once you're in a relationship. And that's what I use with victims all the time, present day. The other is called the Psychopathy Checklist, and that was developed by someone called Dr. Robert Hare. And when I started working cases of serial rape, murder and abduction in England and Wales, and I ran the homicide prevention unit, that psychopathy checklist was important for indirect assessments and understanding, because we know that those serial killers, what we would now call coercive control, there are traits, there are things that we can see, but we have to be looking for them. So, my top number one thing that's actually not on that checklist, ironically, is power and control and coercive control. And the key thing that motivates them is power and control. They seek to utterly dominate. And actually their whole psychopathology is dominate or be dominated. And that's how they understand the world. That's how they move through the world, and they see people really as just objects to be dominated and to be used for their own gain. So their needs are the most important thing to be met. So that's what you're looking for early on in a relationship. And
so that is very key. And that's usually right off the board, but psychopaths are looking for people who like to serve. Mm-hmm. Do you like to serve? Are you a minister? So when Scott first saw us, what we didn't know was that he was using our need to be a minister against us. The same thing he used with Brad or anybody else, Brian and Alicia. I'm listening to you. No, you're listening to learn things from them. What can you gain from them? But again, in all of our conversations, even one of the reasons we haven't done many more shows about him, because I'm tired of him taking up oxygen. However, that is who he is, and he needs to be called out as the psychopaths. They don't do anything without a reason for it. The rest of us, you're going to give to somebody because you care, and then you're not going to think about that person. No. A psychopath gives you something. He's doing it because he wants something from you, or he wants accolades from people around him. Okay, look what I did. Oh, look how much money I raised for this person to get our furnace or whatever. We did it, but I did it. I'm awesome. I'm praying. I'm this, I'm that, I'm this, I'm that. So anytime he's giving or kind to psychopath, is going to be doing it for himself. Now, right here off the bat, can women be psychopaths too? Yes. But a male psychopathy is going to be sexual, physical, financial domination, whereas women are wired differently. So they're not going to be the serial killers that get off on just actually physically necessarily doing harm to people. There are those, but like the actual serial killers, you're only going to see those in women who are serial killing men to get their money. Like women have different motivations. Women don't necessarily get with men to try to rape and dominate and kill.
Yeah.
Women want money and then they kill. Okay.
Wow.
So that you do have, you have less women killers, but when you do, it's for different reasons.
Well, while we were bringing up gender, I did hear this woman, and maybe we'll play this clip here tonight. I don't remember where it was at, but she said that when we're talking about narcissistic behavior, most people, when you think of a narcissist, you think of females. And she says that actually men far overrepresent in narcissism than women do.
Yes. And psychopathy too. Very interestingly.
It's that Jekyll and Hyde. You know, if you see it, run. Because they will come up with all sorts of reasons for why they did what they did. And often they break down into victim mode when challenged about it. And they will say things like, well, it's because I was abused as a child, or this happened to me. And the woman will listen, and she'll then start feeling sorry for him, and she'll go straight into empathy mode, and she'll now be comforting him rather than standing her ground about the thing that he did that upset her. And you know,
Scott Kesterson was abusing the Cantrells for months, weeks on end. Okay, wouldn't talk to them, silent treatment, in a behavior that you and I would never tolerate from anyone. He would hide from them. Christine would try to talk to them and find him. He would literally go and like hide inside of a barn, and they would wait outside of the barn to talk to him, to talk something through with him, and he would not come out. That's psychopathic behavior, okay?
Well, it's not that they would like wait outside.
No, she said they would wait outside waiting for him to come out, and he would never come out.
But it wasn't like they were standing right outside the door. It's like where the property was. It's like they could watch, they could see, like, but he just wouldn't come out.
And then, like with the voice message that I have, when he's so angry and he's pulling out, he doesn't want to be around the Cantrells, and he has to go back to his property, but he doesn't talk to them. He goes, he ignores them, he's angry, he's seething. He almost hits his gate on the way out per his own testimony and their testimony. And then on the way, he goes straight to Brian and Alicia Derrico, and I have it on recording and we played it on our show, where he gets through the weekend and he's doing a great thing. But his first initial stop off with Brian and Alicia, he's like, I need help. Demons in me, and I quote, want to harm Christine's baby in her womb. When you now put in demons attacking you, you're the victim. No. You're a psychopath who wants to harm. If you're having thoughts of harming a pregnant woman's baby, you're a psychopath. We're going to throw out Christianity for a minute. And guess what? Christianity and your whole demons attacking me thing is not going to hold up in a court of law. Demons made me do it is not going to hold up in a court of law. Demons made me want to kill somebody is not going to hold up, and it's not holding up in my court of law. And the other video that I watched said, watch out those who can harm and kill animals.
Oh, wow.
And Scott killed a very loving dog.
When I interview those women, they don't even know how they got there or how he flipped that script. But before they know it, they're now on the wrong foot. They're now comforting him, and the other thing has gone away.
Brian and Alicia are under a big
know
spell.
That's what's going on. So the early identification and intervention and prevention starts straight away. And look, I never want to wait for things to escalate where the police are involved. But when I psychologically autopsy cases, I always say, tell me about how you met. And they then start to describe. They might say, oh, it was 10 years ago. And I said, well, tell me about that. And what I often find is that they've been targeted. So the setup is very important. They are trying to figure out who's compliant, who's going to be malleable. And of course, women, girls, we're taught to be compliant and we're taught to be polite, we're taught to be malleable. But there are certain women who are even more empathetic and malleable. So I'll give you an example. Everyone's heard about the case of Dirty John and Deborah Newell.
I hadn't. It's
John
a UK
Meehan
killer.
Was a psychopath. He's somebody who I indirectly assessed. I spent a lot of time analysing his life and how he targeted women. He met Deborah Newell, and they met on a dating site, and she felt he was too good to be true. He ticked many boxes for Deborah, and he ended up being a very coercively controlling and dangerous man, but he didn't present as that to begin with. And they ended up getting married very quickly. No real checks and balances in place. He kept pushing the relationship. When they did marry, within months, her daughters were against it. They didn't feel John was who he was claiming he was. He was making out he was a doctor, and one of the daughters didn't buy it because he had dirty fingernails and his scrubs were always dirty, and she'd worked in a medical setting and knew that that was a big no-no. So when she realised that there were red flags and that he was dangerous, and the daughters had hired a private investigator, she was already in too deep, but she disappeared herself for 6 months. And she lived out of hotels, she wore wigs, she had different cars. But what she didn't bank on was that he would target her daughters, and that's what he did. And because he couldn't get to Deborah, he was going to seek revenge on her by going after the people she cared about the most. Now, ironically, it didn't end the way that John thought it would. He had a knife, he intended to kidnap Tara, and she unbelievably fought him and won. And she ended up putting the knife through his eye and killing him. So when I first spoke to Deborah and said, you called it coercive control, Laura, you said, and you described to a T my life, me, what was going on in terms of what he did to me, but also him. And you gave me my dignity back because people kept blaming me. Why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do that? Why didn't I protect the children? She said, I'd love to meet with you and just understand how you knew all the things that you did. So I did meet with her, and I asked her, tell me about that first date. And she said, I met him on this dating app. He was too good to be true. I mean, we go on this date. He's the perfect gentleman. We're talking. And I said, how much talking did you do? And she said, I talked a lot. And she sort of laughed. She said, he was a really good listener, Laura. And that's one of the things that I really valued about him. And I said, oh, why? And I knew what was coming. And she said, because in my previous relationships, when I was married before, the men didn't listen to me. I said, did you tell him that? She said, yes. I said, did you tell him about all your previous relationships? And she said, yes. And I said, and did you tell him what you were looking for in a man? And she said, yes. And then I knew she'd given him the blueprint for everything she was looking for. He just became and embodied that.
Now, I don't want to throw you off, but listening for men is a skill that is learned. It doesn't come naturally. Mm-hmm. And quite frankly, I am jaded at this point. And if you are a male and you are a really good listener, or you seem to care, I don't trust you. I don't. Because that is not a male quality that comes naturally. Now,
Neil Peterson is the exception to the rule because he had sisters.
Well, no, but see, even Neil, God bless Neil, he doesn't sit and listen. He's quick. Tell me your story. I'll give you an answer. We're going to move on.
Yeah,
he is a man,
true.
And men are like, give me it quick. Let's get an answer. Let's move on.
But I'm just saying Neil does more than most men.
But I said,
right?
It's not, Neil is not the exception. He is the rule. He works at being a minister. Mm-hmm. I know he stops to try to listen to people.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't come naturally. So what I'm trying to tell you, ladies, we have different communication skills.
Sure.
Than men and women. Men do need to talk. And it's good if they can listen. But it doesn't necessarily come naturally. And it's just like with you and I, any sort of masculine traits that are good and godly, we have to work at, like being protective even, or going out and killing a chicken, like a lot of things on the farm, I have to learn and acquire those abilities that don't come naturally to me in my gender roles that God has given me. But you can acquire them, and you should, okay? And men should acquire skills, but it should be an acquired skill and not something that seems to come all slick and naturally, okay? So what happens with psychopaths is they are only listening to you to garner ammo and information and data, just like a detective. When a detective knocks on your door, they're not there for a conversation to see how you're doing today. They're there picking out every little thing about you, and they're writing it down to use against you, okay? Or to rule you out. So psychopaths, when they're the psychopaths need a lot of victims, and they need to move from victim to victim, and they're always setting up and ranking victims. And so they're like, I've listened to this person has empathy, compassion, easily manipulated on certain areas, or maybe I can manipulate them here. Maybe my skill set. Psychopaths are not just out there if they're trying to garner you in a relationship versus just murder, by the way. Okay. So a murderer psychopath is going to look for different sets of weaknesses. Alone, in the woods.
Okay, right.
But
Let's just be clear. The murderer psychopath is not as prevalent as the rest. Like,
no,
that's easy. It's easy. The easiest one to talk about, I think.
Right.
But what it does,
we're talking about like psychopaths in relationships with their family and friends and relationships. They're cold, they're calculating, and they're listening and they have a set. They're going to bypass a whole lot of women. A whole lot of men. Psychopaths actually don't just target women, even though this is the subject of this particular podcast. I wanted to be clear. When I was talking to Paul, I said, Scott targeted Paul. Scott has targeted the Rick in Montana. Scott targeted Brian and Alicia. Scott really, the best psychopaths know how to target both men and women.
Oh, sure.
And they will listen to both men and women. But here's the thing. All of those men, Brian with Brian and Alicia, Rick, Brad and Cantrell, all of those men have something in common. They want to be ministers. They want to be ministers of the gospel.
Right.
And so they feel like if they can bring a man under them to be a minister of the gospel, then they'll do that. And so that was their weakness, is being a minister of the gospel.
Literally ticked every box for her because she had handed over the blueprint to him. And that's a very important lesson to girls and women when you go on dates. Don't overshare. You don't want to talk about everything that went wrong in previous relationships and give them all this information that could potentially be weaponized. So that's always the first golden rule of preparing to go on a date, and be clear what your goal is. And it shouldn't be to overshare and give a blueprint to somebody about everything that you're looking for in a future partner. So unfortunately, they have no moral code at all, which means they have many more options available to them. And
they have more options than you and I do. Sharon Proctor says, my ex killed my daughter's rabbit. While burying it, as she was crying, he said to her, now you know how it feels to have the pet you loved killed.
Oh my gosh.
What will you do for me is the answer you get every time you ask them for anything. I wish high school and Sunday schools showed the video of how to spot a sociopath or psychopath. These people are too charming and often push for marriage. They lack empathy. They lack being kind. They're loving are their source of what they feed on. Wow. I'm so sorry, Sharon, that you married somebody who would kill an animal. And here's the thing. Men who would kill an animal to hurt someone would kill a person. You have to know that. And that's very scary.
And you know what's super interesting is Susan, the dog breeder, in the SK situation, she said the same thing. Anybody that would kill an animal in cold blood like that, like what would they do to a human? They would always kill a human.
Yeah. That's what they're looking for: dominate or be dominated. And if you're going to expose someone like that, you better know what you're doing, because they will come back at you and they will scorch the earth. They won't just give you a ding; they will look to destroy you. And so once that changes.
That's why we were careful to do our shows. That's why I'm careful. That's why his name is not in this show. This in the title.
That dynamic, and they see that you see them or you understand, they get into that scorch the earth mode. And that's when it's very dangerous, actually. It's not just about being wronged. It could be your life is in danger. So that's why the work that
So Scott Kesterson, he stole money from a cancer victim. He was arrested. He went to jail for this. It's a real crime.
Right.
That he actually served some jail time for.
And he's rewritten.
And he's rewritten the crime in not a coherent manner, by the way. And so when Michelle told him that I was on to this, that other people already knew, it wasn't hidden, it's all over the internet. What did he say?
He said that if she, I don't remember the exact words, but if she makes a big deal about this, if she goes, and goes to talk about this, I will destroy her.
I will ruin her.
I'll ruin her. Yeah.
And that's what that's a psychopath.
Right.
A psychopath says, if you expose my actual crime and the crime that I actually did that I lied about, I'll ruin you. Again, you're making yourself out to be the victim. I'm over here trying to save a bunch of people and get my sister out and get this family protected and get a whole bunch of people their money back. But I will ruin you, because right and wrong don't exist in the mind of a psychopath.
It's whatever morality for them, literally.
And they do have a moral code.
Is what is good for them is moral and right. And what is not good for them is evil and sinful and wrong.
And so they feel
that's their moral code.
A moral justification.
Sure.
To go after people.
And that's how they can kill people.
I do, and with the DASH in particular, it's a life-saving checklist, and it gives the victim permission to tell us what's going on, because often they feel shame and blame and judgment and all the things that keep her entrapped, and the perpetrator knows those things. So he will use all of her biggest fears as leverage to keep her quiet and keep her controlled. You know, psychopaths will stop at nothing and no
They
one
look
is off
for your
limits to them.
They look for your biggest fears. They don't look for fear.
Mm-hmm.
They don't just try to make you afraid. Psychopaths learn your fears.
Exactly.
What makes you afraid? Because here's the thing. Psychopaths get you to open up and you feel like you're sharing. This is what really scares me. This is what really bothers me. And then they will use those fears, and especially if you try to leave, they use those against you.
And people would think, oh, well, it's their child or it's their wife. No, if you're going to expose them, or if you're looking to exact your will or your autonomy, and they've been in control up until that point, that's when you can see a very different side to them.
I'd love to actually go through some of them if you don't mind, because you live a very different life, I think, than a lot of us women. And so I bet you your spidey senses are like just hella strong now. But like for most of us, I'm just naive. And I hate to say that out loud, but I think I am. When I start going into your world and reading up of the things that you deal with and what the depths of the level that a psychopath or a sociopath or a narcissist will go to, you've seen the results of that. But really starting from your everyday woman that doesn't notice the small things. So let's go through a couple of the points that Dr. Hare developed on the checklist. So we've got superficial charm. How do you even spot superficial charm?
Yeah, it's a hard one, right? And spidey senses, just to pick up on something you said, is so important, right? What our gut tells us, we have more brain cells in our gut, in our stomach, than a dog has in its head.
Did you know that?
We do, and that gut instinct is so important. We feel it here, first of all, when something's off.
You feel it in your gut. Go with your gut,
baby. Then the brain starts to rationalise what it is.
Yeah.
And then if you've got someone reinforcing and chiming with that rationalisation, we kick it off. And what I say to all women is never ignore your gut instinct.
That's good.
If you do, that's when you'll find a problem. And so always being in that moment of, if the hairs on your arms went up or the back of your neck, that's the early predator alert system. We all have it. And it's part of Darwinian survival.
I have
right? There are some
two
things
people that I went to Rhema with that were both, in my opinion, on this scale. And again, when I met them, my spidey senses went up and said, and particularly a girl who I believe is a psychopath.
Oh, 100%.
And I hated her. I not hate, but like I disliked her because of the way she presented herself. Superficial charm, very charming, had to be the center of attention. And I didn't like her and I didn't want anything to do with her, but I rationalized it away. She lived in my apartment complex. I needed a ride one day. And then she suddenly became my best friend. It's that intense love bombing. You're amazing. You're this, you're that. Type, and then she turned out to be a psychopath and tried to pin she would talk madly about me to Michelle, talk about badly about Michelle to my mom, talk about badly about our mom to me, and she was trying to pin all three of us against each other on our trip to California with her. It was insane. She was a psycho.
Well, and back to the love bombing phase, you know, there are some people that are just genuinely kind. I fall in that category, and I don't mean that like in an arrogant way. It's just I want to compliment you. I want to find the things that are going to make you feel good. I want to lift you up. That's my goal.
That's a Christian thing. The problem is that psychopaths mimic Christianity.
Exactly. They do it and they will say you're the greatest. Like they cannot stop talking about how wonderful you are. Mm-hmm. Again, I'm going to call out Pastor Neil. Even Pastor Brian's really good at this too. Like finding the things that are about you that they want to lift you up and they want to praise and they want to encourage, because that's what we're supposed to do with one another.
But you know, I'm going to tell you this. That is a trait. Again, it's an exercise trait that you learn by being a Christian, wanting to be like Christ. And we know we're sacrificing a part of ourselves to do that. We know we're giving, like going to buy a gift for somebody. You know that you're giving something, okay? So, not expecting something in return.
It's, again, let's go with the spidey sense. Okay, now I have had people, and I don't mind telling you this, I have had people several times come to me and say, in the beginning, I thought you guys were this, right? So I'm not going to say that like our spidey sense is always 100% right, because there's been people that I didn't like at first, and then later on I was like, oh, I got that one wrong. But most of the time, my spidey sense is right. So again,
most of the time people say they don't think that we are love bombing. They think we're ditzy and lack depth.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think we're pretty deep.
see or we can't put our finger on, but we intuit it, we feel it, it's in the ether, it's part of someone's aura, it's how they come across, it might be a micro expression, it's something we pick up, we can't always rationalize it, but always believe what your gut's saying. Be curious, ask questions, and always trust your instincts. And when I was at New Scotland Yard, I read thousands of rape statements, and you know what, Lisa? In pretty much every case, the woman sensed danger before the rape happened. And she allowed her rationalization, to minimize, to rationalize, I don't want to be rude, so, I don't want to be make him feel uncomfortable, so I'm not going to do X or Y. And that was the moment when
you're walking past a guy,
feels
uncomfortable.
She could have acted, and you never get that moment back again. But I've interviewed so many victims, and they all say, if only I had, if they're aware of it, because they felt it and they intuited it first. And your gut, when you're in danger, and just get out of that situation immediately.
All right, guys, we'll
So
be right back with Laura.
you're jogging and you can just feel like you're outside and you're alone and you just kind of feel something, go with that. Because it's better to embarrass yourself and to insult someone than to suffer the consequences
Now, are we going to watch
of that.
this whole thing, or can we skip any sections?
We'll see.
You to do that. Why isn't he the person in the car turning the ignition and you're looking at whatever it is he wants you to see? So your gut, everything about that screamed, red flag, run. And that's what I want people to do. And look, every woman has a scary story, and if not multiple. I have many stories like that. And I'd rather just seem impolite and a bit rude rather than the other consequence, which is something that changes my life forever, or maybe I don't even get out of that situation, right? Some women don't.
Yeah, as I'm running, I'm literally saying to myself, oh my God, you're so silly. This poor guy probably just needs help with his car. Like, as I'm running, that's what's going on in my mind.
So a guy had asked help with a broken down car, and she's like, no, I gotta go. Listen, ladies, you don't have to help anybody. Michelle gave a guy a ride, 65 years old, in the rain with a bunch of groceries. But by and large, you're not a good Samaritan.
I didn't have a bad feeling, though. My spidey sense didn't go, don't pick up this guy.
Have to go for a walk or for a run, or go through the motions. That means that the emotion was deep. Psychopaths have no depth. They will just appear chameleon-esque. They will be mirroring back. So even when you're sitting with them, they will mirror back your body language. They will be mirroring everything that you're doing to increase likability. Even through neurolinguistic programming, they use similar words. They will mirror and match and socially engineer things. So, oh, you go to that church? Oh, me too. Oh, you play tennis there? That's me too. And you're thinking, oh wow, this person's, they say we're meant to be, you see? Yeah. And you end up saying, wow.
Now, it's not always necessarily, oh, me too. What we ran into with SK was a complete life change, and his listeners saw it. And they got really upset about it, actually, because literally he did a life change, not just to mirror Leah and I, but to mirror Brad, to mirror Brian and Alicia, to mirror all of these things. And his listeners were like, wait, what happened to the Scott that was mirroring? They didn't know this was mirroring QAnon and all of these other things. Like, that's all that he knows how to do, is to observe and to mirror. And so we would sit here and go, like, especially when it came to the family as everything, and to the point where he literally got this vasectomy reversal because he was mirroring our deep convictions.
And especially, the Cantrells there too.
Oh yeah, with having the Cantrells there, and they have a big family and all of that. Like, so
well, their Cantrell's whole ministry is family is everything.
We thought he was just growing and learning and catching on to the things that we believe deeply are godly principles. We didn't realize that we were being played.
Exactly.
And looking back on it, it's almost facepalm worthy. It is facepalm worthy, because you're like, no, of course you wouldn't have that big of a turnaround.
The big thing is he changes and this particular con that Scott would run is he is mirroring back to you in a change. Like, okay, you don't want me to curse, I'm not going to curse. Oh, you're into the Pilgrims, I'm going to be into the Pilgrims. You're into the Founding Fathers, I'll be into the Founding Fathers. You're into this, he meets Brian and Alicia. Oh, you're into casting out demons, I'm going to be casting out demons.
Yeah.
We really are meant to.
And then what that does for our psyche is the way that humans are built is we initially want to find people who are already like us.
Right.
If we don't find people who are already like us, then the next best is people who change to be like us, is almost a better high, because then you feel like you've done something good and you have educated somebody.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, once people are hooked in, when people say, rose-tinted glasses, when we fall in love, we tend to see those signs, but we negate them. We put them to the side. And why I say that is because I do think women see these things, but often we don't want to admit that we've seen it, and we would far rather concentrate on the benefit of the doubt So that's the other risk marker for me. If they're too good to be true, do your checks and balances. I think too many people go along with that whirlwind romance, and the psychopath, the coercive controller, will put it into a whirlwind. They will love bomb you. They will, have a strategic campaign to win your heart.
Again, like with Scott, I hadn't been around somebody who knew how to compliment me in those encouraging ways that I wanted. I would receive compliments in. Leah, you're good at blessing people. You're good at your shows. You're good at finding things, those kind of things. Like he would find ways to love bomb and so here's the thing. They pick up cues on what you think. And here's the thing. We have a show, so you can really pick up on who we are.
Oh, sure.
And so we were targeted by SK going all the way back to the beginning of our show in 2017. We did not meet him until 2021. And so there was a long game. And here's the thing. You can say, well, how did that plan out like that? Listen, you can want to target somebody and never actually reach your target. He had probably a lot of targets. Ours just happened to show up at the right place at the right time. And you could say, well, why would God allow that? Because a lot of people as a result of our show have gotten free.
Amen.
They will say all the things, do all the things, the gifts, the and you want to understand all of that. But I always recommend you want the honeymoon to last as long as possible, right?
So
predominantly it is men we're talking about, is they talk a really good game, but their qualifications and experience does not match that game.
That is a big one. They talk a good game, but their qualifications and experience don't match that. Scott Kesterson, was constantly saying how he was like involved in this military, and everybody is convinced that he's super military. Like that's the one thing that people really don't like. Well, and like our friend who was in the military said when he met him in person, he's like, you are not this Jack Ryan. He presented himself in the very beginning. Oh, and then Scott Kesterson, trust your training and all these things. He was Jack Ryan. And I've talked to even like Rick from Montana and other people who are like, you mean he's not Jack Ryan? He is a disabled, overweight man. It's like Nim's Island.
So, if you haven't seen that movie, it's Jodie Foster is an author and she writes these books, and the little girl,
the main
reaches
character
out.
in the book is a big adventurer male.
Right. And she's
hero.
the author and not that actual
So the little
person.
girl on this island needs a hero. So she writes hoping that she's going to get this big male hero. And the author, who is so afraid to leave her own house, eventually goes and tries to save this young girl. And she's like, who are you? And that's the way these guys present themselves, as a doctor or a this or a that, or I have all this information, or I'm this super high secret CIA, blah, 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 blah. Now, there's always a little bit of truth.
So, but I want to emphasize an example. Near the end, I don't know, within the last few months, I really, I could see exactly who Scott was, but I was still under the spell that it was okay.
That it was okay. That it was okay.
Like I knew he was lying. I knew that he wasn't who he was portraying himself to be, because I could see it. I talked to him every single day throughout the day, all day long.
You're not Jack Ryan.
I know who you are.
You're
so
mall
he
cop.
goes on this radio program one day, and it was supposed to be a really big deal. So I'm listening to the radio program live, and the radio host guy. I know what it was. It was when he went to go do that.
Phyllis Schlafly Award?
Yeah. So he went and he did an in-person, in-studio radio program, whatever, right? And so the radio host was like, he says something offhandedly like, I know you could probably kill me with one arm behind your back, or something like that. Like that level. Scott doesn't correct him. Scott doesn't say, no, I'm not really that guy, okay? I just play that guy on TV. So afterwards, when I'm talking to him on the phone, I was like, no, you did so great. It was a really great program. And I laughed out loud when he said that, because these guys have no idea. I literally said this, because these guys have no idea that you're not that guy. Like that you don't know how to kill somebody with your one arm tied behind your back. Right. So I'm laughing about it. Right. But it was well known for me. And I would even like call Scott out about it. Like just tell him like these people. And I would talk to him about it. I would be like, Scott, you know that these people think that you are this. Right. And we would just joke about it. Like, but I didn't realize at that time. Scott just played it off like they just let them believe what they believe. Right. If they're going to believe that, they're going to believe that. But I didn't realize at that time that Scott had garnered this, that he had built it. It was almost like this kind of like, well, that's what they believe about me, so there's nothing I can do about it. Right. But no. That's who he wants you to believe that he is. And he convinced hundreds of thousands of people that that's who he was. That's who he is. And you know what's interesting is that a lot of these guys that are that don't actually present as that. You see them go on these podcasts all the time, and then like I'll have watched them 3, 4, 5, 6 times, and then like, wait, you're like one of those guys? Like I never got that vibe from you because because that's just not those types of guys, the military guys that literally could kill you.
They're hiding it.
They don't want to put it on. No.
They don't want
I'm
people
not that
to
guy.
know.
I'm not that guy.
Right.
But I'm that guy. Right. So that was it was just super interesting. Like I even made fun of him for it.
The more these military guys prop themselves up, the less I think of them.
Exactly.
But they are so confident that people just believe them.
Scott was very
and
confident.
That is a big
in
difference
himself.
between women and men, because women actually tend to, even if they have the skill set, they underestimate that level of skill set or what value they bring to the table. These guys really ramp it up. They are the best at this thing, whatever it might be. As I was changing the law on coercive control, there was a case of a woman called Vicky Cilliers who sadly plummeted from a plane. She had a parachute on. She was a parachute instructor. She had just had her second baby, and her husband encouraged her to do another jump. And her husband, for all intents and purposes, he looked like he ticked every box of being a pillar of the community when you see him in military dress and so on. Well, he encourages her to take this jump, which she does, but the parachute doesn't open, and nor does her reserve. It had been sabotaged, and she plummets 4,000 feet. And Lisa, whoever was looking out for her that day, it's incredible because she survived.
What?
She survived. 4,000 foot.
I couldn't
drop.
believe it.
How do you survive that?
I mean, they all felt they were going to find her and need a body bag, right? But she was still alive, and they rushed her to hospital, and she survived. And when the chief instructor at Netheravon Airfield examined the parachute, right, this is 1 in a billion of 2 chutes not opening. One, you can understand, but your reserve. So he took the whole chute apart and saw it been sabotaged, calls the police. The police suspect the husband, Emil Cilliers, who had encouraged her to do this jump, and they start to investigate him. But Victoria's having none of it. And what they find is when they look at his phones, he's been not just dating many other women, but seeing sex workers. His sole preoccupation is with sex. Not work, but sex. And he's not just cheated, he's run up financial debt. He's done so many terrible things, and they believe that he is responsible. And they find out from one of her friends who was a doctor who called them, who said their relationship is really problematic. I'm really worried. She's my best friend. I shouldn't be telling you this, but I'm so worried. I'm going to tell you what's going on in this relationship, which she does. And she said if Emil Cilliers was anywhere near that parachute before Victoria jumped, you have to look at him. And that's what they did. And they found out that he had taken the parachute into the toilet with their toddler and was in there for 5 minutes before her jump. So that when they speak to Victoria, she just couldn't believe it. But she said, well, I suppose I should probably tell you about the gas leak.
Listen to this.
And the officer said, what gas leak? So she then says, a week ago, the gas valve under the sink had been opened. And I text Emil. I said, did you touch the gas valve under the sink? He said, well, can you turn the stove on? Test it by turning the stove on. She didn't do that.
Most of us would be like, were you joking?
But that was the second follow-up, and that's when they decide, when she tells them that, they're going to go and arrest him. And when they tell her they're going to arrest him, her world fell apart. She couldn't handle it, and she protested on his side. She defended him. Such was the coercive control and the manipulation. But Emil Cilliers, whenever he met women, he was the best at everything. And if you start to look at their history, you see that actually their experience, their qualifications, it doesn't match to the talk. But there's that kernel of truth, i.e., he was in the British Army, he was a sergeant, and there he is in his military dress with his shiny shoes, and you would never suspect that he was a psychopath. But it took a female detective whose instinct about him, for 6 hours he talked at her with misogyny and the way he talked about women and about Victoria. He was going to leave her, he doubted baby number 2 was even his, he questioned the paternity, and this female detective's listening to him and is just thinking, this guy, we've really got to look at him.
You know what's fascinating? I mean, thank you for sharing that. That's utterly heartbreaking. But one thing you actually said is it took a woman police officer to trust her gut and recognize it. But what's sad is the wife didn't trust her gut. The fact that he turned on the gas and was like, oh, just switch it on to see if it works, that wasn't enough of a sign for her.
Well, you see, I think it was. And Victoria I've always been very interested in, because when it went to trial, she sabotaged the trial. She said that she was the one who sabotaged her own parachute. So the question is, why would she do that, right, when there were 2 attempts on her life? So I was always very interested, and I always am, in victimology. And what it really talked to with Victoria is that the betrayal trauma was so great. She just could not accept that this man who she had this fairy tale wedding with, and she'd been married before, she wanted this happy ending, the betrayal trauma was so catastrophic, she couldn't deal with it. But she knew She knew deep down, because otherwise why would she say to the police, oh, I suppose I should tell you about the gas valve? She offered that up. Right, so you look for the clues in amongst things where when someone's been gaslit by an expert manipulator, they don't know which way is up. But their gut, they normally have a sense deep down. So when they say something like that and then they're angry with the police for pursuing it, they're telling you really that, yes, they've been gaslit, they've been manipulated, but they cannot deal with that betrayal trauma. And often with victims, particularly of psychopaths and coercive controllers, they may well defend that person. And again, the reason being is because the love, the attachment, the emotional attachment and investment is so great. And they want the person to go back to who they were when they first met them. And they will say, I just want him to go back to who he was when I first met him, Laura. And I'll say, well, tell me about that. And they say, those first 6 months, Laura, they were incredible. And then they start to describe the too good to be true, the perfect. And they may have been with him. I had one lady who was with this guy for 10 years. And for the first 6 months, he was that. But for the rest of the time, he abused her in every way. And she really thought that that first 6 months, that was him versus the 9 years of his behaviour. Because there are good times too, as well, peppered in that 9 years, right? And the offender will leverage those things. So going back to Victoria Cilliers, she still even saw him after the first trial failed, because they did go to a second trial. She even went to go and see him, and he started doing the head work again, trying to manipulate, trying to get back in. And she was the one that really swayed the jury, because she's also an incredible woman. I mean, she's very smart, very well put together, smart, eloquent. You know, we're not talking about women who are naive or silly.
So I wanted to, stop there and explain, like, this woman, he wanted to murder her several times, but she stayed with him because the trauma of the bonding that she had, the idea of losing that was so great that she actually went to trial and said that she sabotaged her own parachute. She lied for him. She knew she was lying for him because the pain was so great. She was so under that spell of this very hateful, hurtful psychopath. So how can we spot some of these? Let's get to these spotting warnings here.
Me to jail, but can you just give me a day to just get my dog sorted out? Well, everyone loves animals, don't they? So she's like, okay, I'll give you 23 hours.
Oh, hang on, we'll go back here.
No one joined up all his serial offending behaviour until one female detective got involved. But he knew how to work the system. So even on one of the times after an assault, he turns up to court, female judge, and he says, oh, I've got dogs and I haven't sorted them out. So I understand you're going to send me to jail, but can you just give me a day to just get my dog sorted out? Well, everyone loves animals, don't they? So she's like, okay, I'll give you 23 hours. And that's what she gave him. And he's wreaked havoc in those 23 hours.
So that was another serial killer who knew how to pull on the strings of a judge and said, listen, and lied, basically.
So he had understood the system very well. He'd never served time, hard time, even though the short sentence that he had. On that occasion, he came out of prison, and that's when he met Deborah Newell. And the night afterwards, he was on a dating site, put a picture up of him wearing scrubs with a tan, and meets Deborah. They end up going on a date. Oh, can I come back to yours? And she says, yes.
Wow. So the versatility that they're getting arrested, they're getting off, they're getting arrested, just is an indication that they have zero respect for the law or for anything that goes beyond what they care about and want.
Correct. Yeah. And sometimes it might look quite small. With John, it was drugs. He was a drug addict, and he was using and he was stealing from the hospital. And we suspect there were multiple murders as well.
Wow. That we just don't know about.
Well,
the activity, lack of realistic or long-term plans, like all of these things really do highlight.
So that's interesting one. I'm going to just go back just a little bit.
If it happened, is horrifying. And in your story, as you were talking, I was just like going back to this list of how many things that he has done that is on your list. So I mean, lack of remorse and guilt, conning and lack of sincerity, short-tempered, poor behavioral control, early behavior problems, impulsivity, lack of realistic or long-term plans, like all.
So all of those are SK, Scott Casterson. Very impulsive. So he was like, we wanted
Especially
to do
the lack of long-term planning.
Yeah. He has no long-term plans. None. He pretends that he does, but it's always like an ex-con. Everything with him was impulsive.
Yeah.
And he had horrible follow-through. The rest of us had to try to get him to follow through with things.
All of these things really do highlight, if we know what to look out for, then maybe we can start to protect ourselves. So apart from this list as well, you've spoken about many times in this talk about coercive control. From what I understand, and I'd love for you to explain more, it's the master manipulation that no one sees coming, that if you speak up about it, people just think, oh, you're going crazy. What are you talking about? That's part of the master of the trap. So what are the things that make up coercive control? What are the actions? And then how is that the master trap for us women?
Yeah, excellent question. And that's what's missing off the psychopathy checklist, right? Dr. Robert Hayer has 20 traits, but power and control and coercive control, that is the motivation of the psychopath. And we have to make this connection when it happens. And a coercive controller will do that. They will set the trap of when you first meet them, they will be all the things, right? They will be too good to be true. And even Deborah said, he was too good to be true. And I said, and that is true, Deborah. You know, so I have to be very clear when I work with people. I don't sugarcoat things. I am a very direct communicator. If someone is too good to be true, do your due diligence. Often they really try and increase likability through the charm approach. You know, you're not like other women. You're just incredible. They will give you every thing that you value that makes you feel amazing, and you feel so special, you feel so seen by this person. It's like it was meant to be, Laura. He just knew things and we just matched across. It was like we were meant to be together. And they will say that too. They will keep repeating those things back. Let's say 6 months down the line, because honeymoons does tend to be in that 6-month window, right? There might be a change, and I'll use it with an example of Alice Ruggles, a case that still haunts me, of a young woman who's very vivacious, great personality, jokester, prankster, and then she met this guy called Tryman Harry Dillon, and he was in the military. And my first question, once I understood the case, was how did they meet? He found her on Facebook, going through his friends' friends, and he sends her a message, and he said, "You're the most beautiful girl I've ever seen. I would love to talk to you." So Alice feels special, right? So that's a prime example. You feel special, you feel seen.
Before you go on, would it be specifically work more on people that aren't obviously beautiful? Because if you're really beautiful and you get it every single day, you'll be like, thank you, and move on.
Yeah.
Is that part of the trap?
Yeah, I mean, it can be. It's tailor-made. So you're exactly right to pick up at that point. So whatever it is that they see that you value,
right,
they will tailor-make it to that. And that's what makes coercive control and psychopaths so dangerous. It's idiosyncratic. The same thing never repeats over and over. So that's a really good pick-up point. And that's why every case has to be looked at on its own merit. So for Alice, yes, she was attractive, but he really leaned into that. She was young, just finishing university, so not much life experience in terms of dating. And he says all these things that make her feel great. So she starts dating him. But within, I think it's about 4 months, he starts to say things like, "Wow, your nose is really big. Has anyone ever said that to you before?" And so, you know, she's kind of like, "Oh, that feels really incongruent to all the other things." She doesn't think that rationally, but of course it feels very jarring. And then he says things like, "Your arms are really hairy. Has anyone ever said that? Oh my God, your arms are so hairy." He would pick up like things that just made Alice feel just so horrible about herself. And he would be jealous of her spending time with friends, and he would try and monopolise her time. So he would change from being this charming guy to then layering in these things which left her feeling very confused. But her personality started to change, and her family and friends.
I want to point out, just to reiterate for those of you that haven't seen the series that we did, as far as the pointing out things that I only experienced that one time with SK, and it was somewhat near the end, the last like 2 or 3 months or something like that. And I don't remember what it was, but we were doing a video call and I got incredibly bubbly and a little bit childish or something. I don't remember what it was. I didn't like baby talk or anything like that, but it was like, I was just super excited about something. And it was, I don't remember, it was a very vulnerable probably side of me. And Scott just stopped and he literally just said, "Don't ever act like that again. I don't like it." And I was like, it felt like a gut punch. Like so that you would think like, you know, who would ever like stick with somebody that said, it's not always in this, like your nose is too big or your arms are too hairy. Like those seems like, but still at the same time, they just seem like they might be like an observational thing, but it's still like really, really hurtful. And so in my mind, I justified it away. Like, oh, I guess I am just, I can understand when people are being a certain way and I don't like it. And so I kind of like, but it super hurt me, like really, really bad. And it was like a complete personality switch, like in an instant. And then he like snapped out of it. Right. But it was just like, it was super like, you will not do that again. Mm-hmm. I do not like that. It was super like, so when she says jarring, I know that feeling. I've experienced it.
Was becoming withdrawn. She didn't want to go out. There were always these arguments between them. So within a 6-month window, it was very evident to family, friends, but they didn't ask. You know, when women start to lose weight, you get complimented. Well, we shouldn't compliment. We should find out the reason why they're losing weight. She was losing weight because of him. And he does end up, after she has rejected him, he decides that he's going to kill her, a premeditated murder, and stabs her many times. And her best friend finds her dead. And
why did he kill her? Sorry, maybe I missed something. What was the catalyst to
well,
that?
rejection. And rejection and revenge for the psychopath.
Her
You know, I
faces.
can do what I want. I can cheat on you, and they will. They will be very sexually promiscuous. They would do all of these things, but the double standard is you cannot do that, and you cannot reject them. And if you do, the diabolical nature of these individuals, I really cannot underline that enough. That it's like a switch that goes, and they want revenge, and they are vengeful, and they will kill on that basis. And Tryman Harry Dillon stabbed her many, many times. He drove up to Edinburgh, goes out on a date.
Oh my God.
That's the callous disregard. You see, as soon as I learned that, I knew he was a psychopath. And that's what I'm talking about. No empathy, no remorse. Never gave her a second thought. Killed her in the bloodiest of way, knife, wet work, stalked her before that, made her life absolutely miserable. And he just goes out on a date.
There's a stat actually that I have. So you've said for somebody to leave, it takes them often 7 to 8 tries to actually finally leave. I assume that's because of the web of manipulation that they're in. But then the stat is 75% of women murdered by an intimate partner were killed after attempting to leave the relationship.
Yeah. Now, if I told you the odds of you getting in a car, 76% chance you're going to crash and die, would you?
No.
So we as women should think very carefully about the men in our lives, because we're educated about the stranger danger, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And even then we don't always trust our instinct, but it's actually the men in our lives danger that we should be educating. We should be doing healthy relationship education of jealous and
That
controlling
is
behavior is
huge.
a big
75% of women killed by an intimate partner, pretty much all of them, were killed when they tried to leave.
Can I expound on that? Because when I heard this, when I listened to this yesterday, all of these bells and whistles went off in my head, because when we started off the show and we were kind of explaining the fact that these people don't have emotion, they don't. And so what that does is it opens them up to be able to kill. But if they don't have the motive to kill, they may not. So there are so many people out there that are at that level where they totally could kill somebody.
Yeah.
They don't have a reason to,
Right.
but they totally could. Okay. And so that is the difference. So it's not that these men are quote unquote, you're going to be a murderer. You're going to murder somebody because you just have it in you because you want to murder. That's not what these people are.
Well, actually, it's true. Some of them are.
No, some of them are. But what I mean is by and large, unfortunately, a lot of women, and I think a lot of you that are watching our show could probably attest to the fact, like, no, I was married to a guy that totally could have killed me. Right. It's not that they want to kill you. It's that they have the capacity to kill you if you do something, if you go so far against them. So they may go, a lot of people went to their graves and never killed anybody, but if somebody had done the wrong thing to them, they totally could have, and they totally would have. They had the personality to do it. It just never was in their best interest to do it.
Then there are the psychopaths that actually get off on seeing people hurt and harmed, and actually do physical harm.
Yes. I'm just saying, like, when we look at this specific statistic, they're getting off on harming the woman every day. Right. And so that's enough. But if the woman turns, then they're going to actually murder them.
big red flag. And, you know, we're talking when girls and boys start to date, which now happens, you know, early, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, that's when we should be talking about this.
Yeah.
And giving boys the skills and letting both boys and girls know that jealousy and control is not love. And often young girls see it as love, and it's not. A healthy relationship and love is all about letting go.
Like
right? If you love someone, you let them go. But this psychopathology is about making someone's world small and controlling every facet of their life. 1 in 2 stalkers act on that threat when they've had a relationship with the victim. 1 in 2. Coercive control. There are over half the questions in the toolkit relate to coercive control. Everything from animals being abused, threatened, to financial abuse. And most coercive control is financially abused.
I've got a question for you. Do you think P. Diddy is a psychopath?
I believe he is. And the biggest markers for me are the need to have power and control and utterly dominate, and the lack of remorse. The switch that goes with Cassie. And we all saw the video, right? I mean, you see that video? He does that in a hotel corridor, not fearful of the consequences. What does he do behind closed doors? And it's men and women's accounts. And I believe what they're saying, Lisa. I don't have any reason to doubt why so many people would describe such specific things.
That's what we're talking about with
top-level manipulator and coercive
Why would
controller.
everybody,
Their sole motivation
has an
is
account,
power and
like
control.
all these accounts.
Dominate or be dominated. And going back to his childhood, his best friend said he was someone who was bullied and was never going to be a victim. He carved his way to success. in everything that he did. And so they find themselves. Jeffrey Epstein came from nothing, makes himself into this invaluable person that everyone believes never even checked his credentials. So they find themselves, they work their way into power. And a lot of it is, a lot of bluster, as in they talk a good game, but there can be talent too. And look, P. Diddy, a very talented musician, right? But the way he treated people, particularly women, his internalized misogyny and hatred of women, when looking at his childhood, I can see where it came from.
Oh, what did you see? How do you correlate?
Well, he's punishing women, right? So the things that he's saying and what he's reported as saying by best friends, by drivers, by his security detail, he would say things like, these hoes need to know who's boss. Well, why does he describe women like that as hoes? That means he holds women in such low regard and they need to know who's boss. That puts him master-servant relationship, right? And then you hear accounts of actually his childhood. His mother was incredible with being a single mother because the dad ended up being shot, gangland, drugs related, although he was never told that. His mum had to be tough love. She had to be mum and dad with him. So when she becomes a disciplinarian, that doesn't sit well with a lot of boys as they get older. They resent it. And that resentment can turn into this level of misogyny and hatred to women. So when he's punishing Cassie, when he's doing these things, storming into the club and he's grabbing her handbag, bearing in mind he was dating J-Lo as well as with his girlfriend at the time, I think it was Kim Porter, but he makes a beeline for her, he shouts at her, every woman who's with her is scared, they're all in fear. He gets her handbag, he opens it, he empties it out. He's trying to devalue her, he's trying to humiliate her, he's trying to control her. He wants to punish her. And it's when you see that level of punishment and you need remorse, no empathy, no responsibility taking, pathological lying. If you're confronted, never happened. Take my gun, it was you. And they believe their own lie. It was the driver who had the gun or whoever he wants to. That's power. That's ultimate domination, power and control, not just of people. It's grooming all the people around him and whatever.
But so not everybody gets to that level because they don't achieve
that level
of power over people. But to the level that SK did have power over people, he absolutely used it in those exact same manners. It was just in different ways. But like I said earlier, the amount of stories of people that messaged us and said, this happened to me, but please don't tell my story, because they're still scared.
There was a family before the Cantrells that sold everything they had and moved, and they were supposed to move in with Marjorie. And she never knew what happened to that family. And the Cantrells came in, and that family went to Glad Tidings for a little bit, and then they were asked by somebody, can we tell your story? And they said, we just want to forget about it. We don't want it to be made known. We don't want to talk about it. Number one, because they're scared. There is this, I would say they don't know that they're scared, but they're scared. Otherwise, you would tell your story to stop him from doing that to another family, because he did do that to the Cantrells, and he is going to. These people can't stop. They're constantly looking for another con, another victim, another thing.
Well, and what SK didn't count on, and this is what they don't count on, by the way, because they utilize, they observe and they listen so that they, and she says something, I think you might have skipped over it or I wasn't here. But she says something about how the person that says there'll be, 8 no's and then a 9th yes, or something like that, right? They look to see if that's you. And so when I told SK my story that I thought I was going through deliverance with him, he literally saw, I gave him the ammo that I am. She literally said, they're going to see if you are a 8 no's and a yeser. Right. And so that was my story. I said, no, right? Until I caved. And so he knew it doesn't matter if she keeps saying no, I can finally get her to say yes. Right. And so they observe. But also what he didn't count on is that my original story that I was sharing with him, that I thought I was walking through deliverance with, I had not told a single soul for 8 years, that story. I hadn't even told Leah. I had told no one. So he observed that and hid it away, that of course she'll never, no matter what I do, she'll never tell anybody. The good news is that the power of God takes everything that we're learning here tonight and flips it on its head. And so when the power of God steps in, then you're no longer the victim. So what happened to me is for months before we did our episodes, I lived, and Leah can tell you, the Cantrells can tell you, I lived in an immense amount of fear, not that I wasn't going to do the show, not that I wasn't going to tell you guys everything, but I just lived in fear that somehow he was going to release text messages, whatever he was going to do, he was going to do.
There's just a whole level of fear around these psychopaths that actually doesn't even make sense.
It doesn't. And so what really set me free was I've never been afraid of him coming after me, because you guys know, power of God, I just feel like somebody would strike you dead. Like, don't come after me. I got angels, dude. Okay. It's just not in your best interest to come after me or my family, because God will strike you down.
Well, it is helpful that he lives in Oregon and not.
But I don't walk in any caution. Yes, because there's wisdom. I walk in zero fear of what this man can do to me or my family, because I know what God, and I also know, here's the kicker. And this is a lesson for all of you, especially the people that sent me those emails. You have nothing to fear when you're on the offense at these people. But you actually, if you're still under their thumb and you don't want to talk about it, or you don't want to do this, you actually have reason to fear. You have reason to fear because they still have power and control over you. So what I did, what the Holy Spirit did, I should say, is God said to me, Michelle, here's how you're going to get through this. You have to go scorched earth yourself. You have to go, no, absolutely. And so when that flip switched inside of me, everything changed. By all means, release the text messages. You know what I mean? Like, fine, let everybody know, because what it's going to do is it's going to prove that you are a psychopath. It's going to prove that you are who I and everybody else has been saying that you are. So now the very thing that he was holding over me is the very thing that he actually can't do. For his own sake, he can't do it. Right. And so they hold a false fear over you, by the way. Right. And so what I want to encourage you guys, if you've been in these types of situations, the number one thing that you can do to protect yourself is to spiritually go on the offense. Then you really have nothing to fear. But the most dangerous place to be in is and we hadn't done the shows, if we hadn't said anything to you guys, then we would be spiritually and physically at risk. And so we had to. There was no choice in the matter, right? So let's get back. We got another one.
Yeah. So this guy over here, he hunts psychopaths for a living as well. And I wanted to play a little bit of his story. He's the guy that caught the Golden Gate killer.
The true psychopath, somebody who doesn't have empathy, they're very good at getting these women under their control. This is like the worst type of predator you can run across, because they love to inflict fear. That's what they get off on. If you see this, get out.
Having spent decades searching for the infamous Golden State Killer, you say that the problem in catching a predator is that psychopaths hide in plain sight. They could be our husbands, they could be a friend, they could be a Starbucks barista, or in this case, it was a police officer who walked amongst us for 40 years without even getting detected. So what traits can we actually look out for to know if there really is a psychopath in our lives?
If you are dealing with a true psychopath, somebody who doesn't have empathy, somebody who has a narcissistic aspect to their personality, they are trying to maintain an aura of normalness to the people around them, whether it be a wife, a girlfriend, a coworker, etc. So they can continue to do the types of crimes that they want to, that they fantasize about. Now, of course, when you are dealing with a psychopath, you know, there are going to be certain indicators from the normal person wouldn't respond this way. You know, somebody like a child gets hurt, you know, and most normal people are going to feel an emotional tug. And this person seems very distant and cold about this emotional event. You know, so that's part of the trait that you would see with a psychopath. But they're very, very good at hiding in plain sight.
How on earth, for 40 years, was he able to hide in plain sight?
Golden State Killer, Joseph DeAngelo, he, in essence, committed crimes over the entirety of his adult life. starting out in high school, committing burglaries, and then ultimately he became a police officer. Now he is trained as a law enforcement professional and was even assigned to this anti-burglary task force to investigate the burglaries that he was committing in the town next door. So, here he is out there in a law enforcement world, people that are trained to recognize criminality, yet they don't suspect him as being the guy that's committing these fetish burgs. He literally is going in and stealing the woman's underwear and stuff like that. So with him, probably the best insight that I have in terms of certain indicators or traits that would be red flags comes from his ex-fiancée, Bonnie. And she dated him for maybe a year. They met in college. And when I talked to her after he was arrested, she said, Paul, rules never applied to Joe. He just did whatever he wanted, no matter what the consequences. And so
that would be SK. Rules don't apply to him. And I always felt like that was like a patriotic libertarian view. I didn't know it was a psychopath. Okay, like he's like, I don't need to pay my taxes. I don't need to do this. I don't need to do that. And we're all like, well, go libertarian, like freedom, but that's not what the hell he meant.
You start thinking about, okay, now here's a law enforcement officer that's willing to go in, commit burglaries, commit sexual assaults, commit homicides eventually, right? Rules don't apply to him. But what Bonnie also indicated is he would put her in danger. She would be riding on the back of the motorcycle, and now he's doing tricks or going at excessive speeds. And this is where now, okay, he is instilling fear in this woman that he supposedly loves. This is a red flag, right? So that's not necessarily going to be an indicator that, oh, he's the Golden State Killer.
Right, sure.
But it is a personality trait that sometimes is common with this type of offender.
But the fact that he was a police officer, I mean, that type of disguise, when I think about people that hide in plain sight, it seems like that's actually even bigger of a leverage for him than even your average Joe, because the last person you're going to suspect is a cop, or usually like a doctor or a teacher.
Right. Yeah, that professional. And in many ways, Joseph DeAngelo hid behind the badge. But it also speaks to his personality, is that he liked having authority. He liked power and control. And so that as a law enforcement officer, you do have authority over others, and you can express that. And of course, he took advantage of that. But his crimes were the same way. A component of what he got out of committing the types of crimes that he committed was having power and control. And this even extends to, with him, a unique aspect about his crimes is that many of his victims were couples. There's a man involved. And he's getting that man bound up and helpless on his own bed with dishes put on his back as an alarm system while he takes the wife out and rapes her out in the family room. He has now exhibited complete dominance over this male. So that was part of his psychological need in terms of committing the crime. Now, to a statement you said earlier is that he didn't consider consequences. Oh yeah, he did. He knew full well the crimes he was committing and that there would be consequences. That's why he's wearing gloves to prevent latents behind. That's why he was wearing a mask so people couldn't see him. So it's the inner compulsion that these offenders have, and it's driven. That compulsion is driven by a need to have power control, and they have sexualized violence. So that sexual compulsion that normal people have, they have that compulsion, but they have these violent behaviors that they need to do. And so the consequences are there, but he is avoiding leaving evidence or witnesses so he could satisfy that inner compulsion. And that's where, when we start talking predator, that predator is somebody that is fantasy driven and sexually motivated. And that's your serial rapist. That's your serial killer, just like DeAngelo.
Wow, thank you for breaking that down. I actually have, in your book, you break down some common serial killer traits, and I'd love to go through each of them. So blended into society, which we've already spoken about. Did he become a cop as a disguise, or did he become a cop and then start the killings and the rapes and the murders and things?
No, so with Joseph DeAngelo, he is committing burglaries in high school. Okay, and we know from a friend that committed burglaries with him. At one point, he killed a dog that came after him. And if you've ever heard of the serial killer triad, bedwetting, fire setting, animal torture. I put no stock in bedwetting. Fire setting, it depends on the context of why that person set the fire. Does that mean that they have predatory aspects? Maybe, maybe not. But when you have a teenage boy that's willing to kill or torture an animal, that's one step away from doing that to a human. That is the predictor, in my mind, that this kid is potentially going to be a problem in society. So here we have DeAngelo, high school year, killing a dog. And then it appears he goes into the Navy. We don't know anything about what kinds of crimes he possibly committed while he was in the military. But then he gets out and he's studying criminal justice. And this goes to his need for that authority, right? Now, I don't know if he thought, wow, I can be a police officer and also commit these, sexually motivated crimes. I don't know if he had that thought initially, but he definitely took advantage of being a law enforcement officer and law enforcement training in order to be able to be a predator. And in many ways, his training as a cop made him a much more successful predator in terms of being able to accomplish the crimes. And this is where now, whether it be Joseph DeAngelo, the Golden State Killer, or you think about somebody that's very notorious out there, Jeffrey Dahmer, he's killing animals. And he's dissecting these animals. What is he doing to his victims after, once he starts, is he is now at a certain point becoming a cannibal. He's dismembering his victim's body. So you can see that type of behavioral evolution in that situation with
I want to pause here because I want, these are super extreme cases. We're not just here to do like a crime mystery program here tonight. And like I said earlier, I'm not saying that the psychopath in your life is going to cannibalize you and eat you.
Or be a serial
rapist or a serial killer. That's not the point. The point is that these people need power and control and domination, but it's not always, and I don't know if anybody here tonight talks about this or if we're going to get into this, but it's not always overt power control and domination. They're fine.
Well,
if
Katie Cat says passive aggressive, Black Widow.
Well, let me finish this thought. They're fine if they can assert their power and control and domination over you and you don't even know it.
Right.
Okay. Like they're controlling. For me, for 14 months, SK was controlling like my whole life. And that's power and control and domination. And I didn't even know it. I thought that it was all willing that I was making these decisions on my own. Not a lot of, I mean, obviously, yes, because I wouldn't stand for being underneath of somebody. He made me believe that I was ministering to him, that I was pouring into him. And then at some point, then the script got flipped and now he's ministering to me and now I can come to him with all my problems. Meanwhile, he's utilizing all of these things to manipulate and to control my actions, not necessarily in an overt way, but complete covert, which again goes back to SK's fantasies are all about covert operations. Okay, so I just want to be clear here.
So there's different fantasies. This particular guy talks about the Golden Gate Killer.
It's Golden State.
Golden State Killer. Sorry. The Golden State.
It's very confusing.
Killer who he fantasized about sexually assaulting people.
Right.
And he fantasized about putting fear into people. Psychopaths have different goals or fantasies.
And Scott's was all about psychological warfare. And literally we showcase this in the 6 episodes. How can I get someone to do what I want them to do or what I'm being paid by a company to do without them knowing that I'm controlling them? That was his big claim to fame. That's why he started Spatial Terra. That's what it was all about. How can we get people in third world countries to do what these big oil companies or these big tech companies want them to do, and they literally hand it to us on a platter? That was his fantasy. It wasn't this overt thing of, well, I'm dominating you and you know it kind of thing. That wasn't his high. I just want to make, as we're talking about this, it's like...
Well, this particular one isn't necessarily about Scott. The other one was.
Right, exactly. But what I'm saying is psychopaths. He says, I catch psychopaths for a living, and these are the top 7 signs that everybody misses.
You're right.
I'm saying that it's, now that we've shifted, it doesn't necessarily mean that everybody is Jeffrey Dahmer. You have to be Jeffrey Dahmer level to be a psychopath.
With Joseph DeAngelo, his evolution from a predatory standpoint is classic. He is hiding behind the badge, getting that power and control, that authority, but he also had the fantasy motivated aspects to his crimes. Fetish burglaries. He's stealing women's undergarments. That's a sexually motivated, fantasy motivated crime. Then he becomes a serial rapist, known as East Area Rapist. And now he is sexually assaulting women. And then eventually having that dominance, as I explained earlier, over the male. But then he becomes a killer. And when he is now bludgeoning women and couples to death down in Southern California, this is how he evolved as a predator. It's classic, from breaking into houses to sexual assaults to homicide. Not all predators evolve that way.
That's what I'm saying.
He is
not all predators evolve from stealing women's underwear. Scott's at the stealing people's money stage. It's a psychopath. Doesn't mean that but he's also at a stage of ruining people's lives and harming people. Okay, in other ways. Okay, so he's talking about what is Scott's fetish? Scott's fetish is raising money for something else and taking it. That's his fetish. It's something that he gets off on, something that he enjoys doing. He enjoys using a real victim or a real need, raising money for it, seeing if he can get people to go along with it, and then taking the money and not feeling badly about it. And we know that he did this multiple times, okay? We know that he actually was arrested in Montana and extradited to Colorado because he started Spatial Terra. He started a literal nonprofit, Spatial Terra nonprofit, okay? And then he put his friend Kelly De La Torre in the GoFundMe. It wasn't a GoFundMe. It was his own nonprofit, okay? And he told her friends and family, because she was dying of cancer, that he was going to raise money in his fund for her so that when she died, it would go to her family.
But the way he justified it is that it wasn't just a fund for Kelly De La Torre. It was a fund that was going to help all sorts of people. But it was going to go through Spatial Terra.
But the real recipient was Scott.
Right.
And so 80 people. I don't know if I have 80 friends who would give, but that's a lot of people. 80 friends and family of Kelly De La Torres gave to this fund, and it was over $10,000 in 2014. So let's double that. Okay. And the husband never saw the money. So the husband went to the police and said, this money was raised. My friends, my family want to know where the money is for this.
Well, and the explanation is that, and this is what Scott gave me, and this is what he put, I think, in episode 64 and then doubled down in his suicide episode or whenever he did it, is that it was complicated and he couldn't get the funds out and he couldn't give the funds to Kelly's husband. And so that's why they came after him, because they just he said that her husband wanted the money, and Scott literally, because of some, red tape, couldn't get him the funds. That actually would fly with a lot of people. Like, that makes sense. You've just started a nonprofit, you've got some red tape. The funds were in Scott's account and he spent it. There are receipts for what he spent it on.
Costco.
So you can't say, right, I couldn't get it to him because of red tape, but I can spend it on, and even if you want to say, well, I spent it on Costco, but I was going to pay it back, so it's still okay. No, that's a lie. You're dancing. You just took the money. You just took the money and you hoped that because the rules don't apply to you, that you would get away with it because, and here's the worst part, Kelly and her husband were friends of Scott's. Mm-hmm. Kelly was Scott's lawyer, was in business with him. Okay. He doesn't ever say this. He just says it's a cancer victim. He doesn't say she was my friend. I have suspicions
that I specifically knew this family.
Right.
Because the chef, the husband, says we were friends with him. I knew this man.
So I think that what Scott was counting on is that Kelly's husband wasn't going to pursue it because they were friends and they just didn't want to make a big deal. And it's not that much money, so why pursue it? And like, why take it to court? I'm telling you, these people think, here's how I can prove it to you. I can prove it to you because that's exactly what he has done and has, up until this moment, gotten away with the money from Flemingsburg. Mm-hmm. People will just let it go. Okay, a few of you, thanks to our program, asked for your money back for the bricks and you got it. Okay, but there were so many people that gave thousands and thousands of dollars in cash.
Checks.
The GoFundMe never, ever got returned, and that got up really high.
And the deal that he made to buy the property in Flemingsburg with Willie, they had to shake him down to get the money the initial seed money that they were promised.
We were told firsthand account from Bill that he literally threatened Scott and said, if you do not give us this money, we will bring the sheriff.
We're going to have to go to court on this.
Right. No, he said, I'll bring the sheriff.
Yeah.
That's what he said. But that's step number one. The point is that these people believe truly that they can get away with it. And when they do get away with it, they do it again. And they do it again. And they do it again. And that's what he has done. That's what he did with the money that was raised for Chile. That's what he has done time and time again. Now, here's how he gets away with it. Because every once in a while, he raises money and gives it to the people, right? And then those people don't want to speak out because, well, they got money and somehow they're going to be implicated. No, you still have a story. You still need to speak out. Cantrell's got money, but they're still speaking out. Okay? But my point in all of bringing this up is that you think Scott thought that he was going to get away with it because they were his friends. And when he tells this story in his little podcast, never once does he say, these were my friends.
So my point is that Scott has a fetish, a crime fetish. And his crime fetish is raising money for people that need it or for an event or something. He's raising money and taking it. He has a fetish of taking money from people. I mean, look, he's got, of being a sob story, he got Brad Cummings to buy him $1 million or $1.3 million property that he lives on, that Brad does not live on.
Right.
It's very, I mean, I don't have the gall it would take to go to somebody and say, can I have $1.3 million so that I can have a nice house and land and a mountain with my name on it, Mount Scott, to look at?
Right.
The gall it takes, you have to have no feeling and no empathy.
Right.
And there was many times when Brad has admittedly needed that money and needed to sell it. But somehow Scott has him all wrapped around, convincing him, no, you don't need to sell it. And Scott would tell me many times, I'm just going to pay for it. I'm just going to buy it.
No, but worse than that, Scott would say, well, Brad's got all these other properties he could sell if he needs money. He just won't do it. He won't sell his other properties because he just has to have his properties. And I'm like, but you are one of those properties.
It's his money. But no, at this point, $1.3 million of Brad Cummings' money is Scott's. He feels it's owed to him, and he would lie and fantasize and tell me, well, I'm just going to buy it. He had no money to buy. Do you know what the mortgage payment is on $1.3 million? And Scott's not going to Scott is not going to.
He kept telling me that he was working on trying to figure out how much he needed to pay Brad every month to be able to buy it.
Well, because he's never going to get a mortgage. He's never just going to say, here's your money, Brad, walk away.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, you could just start paying him.
I know, but he couldn't because I'm telling you.
He barely had enough money he stole the GoFundMe money. So he barely was making it as a human being.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was a period of time last year where, and this is not just confirmed by me. I mean, I didn't look at his bank statements or anything like that, but he was really, really, really hard up for money. And it just so happened to be around the same time that he was raising money for Flemingsburg.
And we're putting it all together, and it looks like upwards of $125,000, you guys.
Right.
That's a psychopath, dude.
Utilizing, his life experience, both, just in general life, but also as a law enforcement officer, and is drawing upon that experience and that level of expertise so he could keep evolving as a predator to do what he needs to do to satisfy his own evil compulsions that he had internally.
Does that evolution also reflect in his personal life with, let's say, his girlfriend or Bonnie or whoever he's with? Are there signs that they're ratcheting up in their personal life? Do they get more angry? Do you know anything like that?
So, by the way, Scott's evolution in the crimes evolved. How can I use what I have now? And so he started his YouTube channel based on ours, by the way, and decided to go the Q route.
Well, no, he had a YouTube channel before we did.
But he didn't have much of a following.
Right.
But he started off the MAGA. I could get those MAGA people.
Mm-hmm.
It varies depending on the offender, and their personality. With D'Angelo, once, he had a major moment in his life. He gets arrested for shoplifting, for a dog repellent and a hammer. He's a cop. And why is he stealing this, right? And so he gets...
So then he gets fired And later on, this guy talks to the police chief that fired him, and there was an actual death threat, this Golden State Killer, on his life. He said, you know, I'm going to kill you, to the police chief, but...
Yes, this textbook, Ross Rapist Typologies, breaks rapists down into 4 general categories. You've got your power assertive, power reassurance, you have your anger retaliatory, and then your sexual sadist. Okay, so just real quickly, power reassurance, this is the rapist that once he gets you under control, he's going to lay next to you in bed and cuddle with you and whisper sweet nothings into your ear. He is, in essence, living out a fantasy of a consensual type relationship with his victim, who's typically a complete stranger to him. The power assertive is the dominant rapist. He's the one that is going to physically dominate, verbally abuse, denigrate their victim. Anger retaliatory. You know, this is like I gave the example of Joseph D'Angelo. He gets angry and then retaliates, typically with extreme violence on his victims. Sexual sadist. That's your worst type of offender in terms of they need to inflict pain and fear and everything else. Joseph D'Angelo was sadistic, but he wasn't a sexual sadist. He did not torture his victims in terms of using a knife and cutting into them, you know, that type of extreme torture. But he enjoyed making them in fear, using psychology. In one case of his, and this would be, you know, attack number 13, this woman.
Later on, he goes on to say that he would like call her and inflict fear. Like he enjoyed inflicting fear.
From birth to him being a young boy to where now he's doing violence on basically a female substitute, right? These dolls. By the 8th grade, he's torturing animals. But when he gets into a consensual sexual relationship, he's young 20s and is dating a high school aged girl. During consensual sex, he's strangling her. And
this was
when he gets
interesting.
married and his first wife is interviewed after he's caught, you know, he did the strangulation during consensual sex with her, but at times they would start making out. He'd push off and he'd go grab a gun and put it to her head or put a belt around her neck and then continue with the consensual, if you want to call it that, sexual thing. He's showing that he had this is called where, you know, he sexualized violence. In order for him to be sexually gratified, there has to be a violent act.
That's Andrew Tate.
You know, so of course, when you start talking about, you know, women and...
This is very interesting because this is not necessarily a born psychopathic trait. What we are now seeing
this is pornography.
Is that psychopathic traits from somebody like a Ted Bundy or Jeffrey Dahmer, who are born these psychopaths, who do this all kind of on their own, right? Are now, because of pornography, they're making more and more pornography. So these guys looking at pornography, that's why it's so bad and so evil and should be banned. Because you're looking at more and more violent things to get off on. And I'm sorry to be crude about it, but this is affecting a lot of people. And this is an area that I felt was an interesting and important dynamic to go into. We're not going to go too much longer tonight in the show.
But it also shows that the demonic element of it, right? That pornography has that spirit of violence and sexual gratification.
I think did I play it or did I just share it? Where Forrest Frank, who sings all kinds of songs. What's the song? We're gonna be lemonade. Life's gonna be a good day. Yeah, okay, and he does the whole dance things. Yeah. Okay, so he's interviewed, and he says he gets married. He's a virgin when he gets married.
Make us big.
I was gonna talk for a second, but okay. He's a virgin when he gets married. On their wedding night, he does something. He doesn't say what it is, and he says his wife stopped, a look of horror on her face, and says, "Where did you learn that?" It was obviously a violent act of some sort. And he said he knew at that point, and he breaks down in tears.
Wow.
And, well, let's just play it. I'll see if I can find it. Because it is, these psychopaths are now cloning themselves, even with one of the strongest Christians that you'll know.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Well, again, it goes to this learned behavior that, unfortunately, again, I would say is spiritual. There's a spiritual component to it, and it is tied to pornography and these demons. You open up these doors to these demons when you watch pornography, which is why, you can't talk somebody out of watching pornography. You're not going to logic them out of it, but you still need to know that when you do these things,
which is in Chick's church.
When you do these things, you are, let me see, I'm not sure if I should be. opening up doors to the demonic to ravage you. And then you will start acting these things out. Let me see. Let me find it over here and I'll grab it real quick.
You want me to switch?
Nope, it's fine. I'll just grab the link.
I can
from over
switch.
here. Nope. I'm here. You want to close all doors that you possibly can to the demonic, and pornography is the one that will open it up right away. Right away. All right. Here we go. Nope. Nope. Here we go.
Oh man, this is heavy. I started watching pornography when I was like, I don't know, really young, right? And I watched it like all the time. And I was a virgin when I got married. And I remember we were trying to have sex for the first time. And I think I kind of like did something aggressive. And she was like, whoa, what are you doing? Where did you learn that? I was like, I know exactly where I learned that. And I was like, whoa, this is our thing to figure out together. This is a new thing. And our marriage is something that we get to figure out together. So that I think that would be maybe the biggest advice is like, let it be your thing and figure out what's fun for you guys and what's romantic for you guys. And
her sharing that with you.
Oh yeah.
It affected you.
It was like, pull the e-brake. We're starting from ground zero. And I just apologized, like, I'm so sorry. Let me just forget everything that I've ever tried to know. Oh man, this is heavy.
That is really deep. I'm going to be honest. I don't think it's deep enough. I don't think the whole idea of just let me forget and let me start all over. That should have been something that you should have done before your marriage as a Christian. And he's pretty young. So this marriage happened to happen and pretty recently. And I just want us to, when we're seeing people like a Forrest Frank, who is really out there. I mean, he's friends with he's very good friends with Abigail's cousin-in-law, Josiah Queen. And they're out there and they're ministering and they're doing all the things. But there is a lack of
pornography has become accepted.
Of male, what's the word I'm looking for? Apprenticeship or guidance in these areas. Mentoring is the word I'm looking for. Because these men don't know how to shut off the pornography that they've seen, and they don't know how damaging it is to their wives, and they don't know that the pornography that they're watching is created by psychopaths to make you a psychopath, like to make you into, well, if we're saying psychopaths are born, then it's making you a sociopath. And so when you have, this is why I talk about Andrew Tate and the seriousness of this. Andrew Tate's girlfriend has been on video like this. Yeah, the choking thing. I've known some girls who don't like it because I've known some girls who died. And what this guy's going to say, I'm going to play a few more minutes. He says, if a man will choke you, he will kill you. If, and just put that out there. Andrew Tate, anybody else. If a man will choke you, he will kill you. There is no fun choking in a sexual situation. And I'm sorry that has to be said. But for millions of people, it's a reality. Lauren Southern, in her book that I just read, she was trafficked by Tommy Robinson to Andrew Tate and drugged.
Purportedly, according to her testimony.
According to her testimony, okay? And she was strangled. And you could see the marks, and she went to the hospital. And the police are not doing anything because the police are in on this fetish, in my opinion. Okay? It's the same thing with Rotherham and all the things that Tommy Robinson is supposedly exposing with all the rape gangs. For anybody to be friends with Andrew Tate and not to say, hey, how do you feel about choking women? You think it's a thing? No, you're a psychopath. You are a killer. You probably have killed people. I don't know. I'm just going to, like, a man who would choke a woman would kill a woman. And his number one girlfriend, whatever you want to call her, pimp girl, has said that she has seen girls die from strangulation in sexual situations. Okay, we're going to play a little more of this other video on the psycho guy.
My heart just breaks for all these young girls. Like, where do you even find a husband now? Because
if Forrest Frank is going to do aggressive pornography on you,
then who can you?
Where
marry?
are you supposed to get married? Who are you supposed to marry?
Right.
How are you supposed to find somebody who has not been tainted by psychopathic
Sexual
images?
behavior. Yeah.
And that's what the devil wants to do. And I will say that's why we do our show, because we believe in radical salvation. We believe in radical sanctification. We believe in being filled with the Holy Spirit, to which you go to the other side and you go on the offense, which is what we thought Scott Kesterson was doing but he was not saved. He is not saved. Keep going.
Is there a behavior that they can spot that says, oh, there's something wrong here? Most certainly, if there's that kind of violence happening during physical interactions, and you have your, let's say your domestic violence abuse, right? But if during the sexual aspect, seems to be a fantasy that's gearing towards violence, that's a big clue there. And any type of relationship, abusive relationship, this is where basically, if I hear you've got the guys that will punch drywall, put holes in drywall while they're holding the woman up against the wall, that's a flag that this guy is going to be physically abusive in the future. But if the man starts to strangle you, puts his hands around your neck, he's going to kill you. That is basically him needing to express his anger at a point by taking it out to a homicidal act. That's huge. You get out as soon as that happens.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. I think that because you've lived that world, this is the reality. And as a woman who maybe I've never been in that situation,
just a little bit
there's a part of you that kind of.
Joseph DeAngelo, he's breaking into houses with entire families in there.
Signs of
men
potential.
with guns. And he is taking over those entire families. This is tremendous risk to
The
himself.
the Golden State Killer got to where this is insane. The community got together and started to blame like husbands for not being there to protect their wives. And he took that, the Golden State Killer took that as a challenge. So, or that, I know it was not, that wasn't it. That was one of it. But the news said he would target single women or women with children. And so he took it as a challenge, said, well, I can target men too. I can do this. And so he would target whole families, men and women.
But he has the physical skill set. He has the training. He has the whole aptitude to be able to commit that level of crime. And so that's why people will hear me say he's like one of the most brazen predators.
And he went on to say that the police chief, when they found out that this guy was going after this guy, they were afraid. It was like the only person they were really afraid, and they were so grateful for when he was actually arrested.
Oh my gosh.
Because they were like, he could come after us.
Pause, because we are almost done with our show. I just want to do a commercial break reminder that we are going to be doing our giveaway at the end of the tonight. So probably in the next 15 minutes. Yeah. Please send me an email, massfaith33@gmail.com, if you want to be entered into winning one of our collections or the book. This one right here. Prayers That Shake Heaven, you can enter to win. Either we'll do a drawing for one of these and for one of the collections.
To the back of that book?
I don't know. A dog, probably.
Uh-oh.
So if you have not won one of our collections before in the past, you can enter Mass Faith, that's MASFAITH 33@gmail.com. Please put your address and your name and which collection you want if you win, because it makes it a lot easier for me to get it out to you.
Catching you off of the trail. It's just the unfortunate situation of these bad guys being out there.
Yeah, God, and one of the biggest traps is just how smart they really are. Because almost like the person hiding behind the bush, while it's scary, you can just try to avoid scary bushes. You can avoid the dark alley. It's the
that's really good.
Smart serial killer that knows exactly what he's doing. And that is what was such a fascination for me as I started to dive into your world and the Golden State Killer, because just the diversion tactics that he uses in order to manipulate the police is, I hate to say it, but genius. It's a sign of how smart this man was, and a reason and explanation, if I'm going to be honest, of how he got away with it for so long. So if you don't mind explaining some of the diversion tactics he used in order that really did try to trick, you didn't fall for it, but tried to trick you.
No, I fell for a lot of things very early on, but so with the original investigation that was starting, back in, let's say 1976 up in Sacramento as the East Area rapist, a lot of the suspects that were being looked at were teenage boys or, drug addicts. And I started kind of buying into, okay, I'm dealing with, this roving sex deviant, this what I would call a troll under the bridge type of suspect, and looking at all those types of guys.
And for people that don't know, you then started after it was a cold case, isn't it? Because they're like, how old is he? He looks amazing. Just to give people some context.
I started on the case in 1994.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, so that was, what was that? That was 8 years after his last known homicide, which happened in 1986.
He still looks too young for that.
I ended up spending 2 years looking for one of these trolls as a suspect. He had just disappeared, and it turned out he was homeless up in Sacramento. Sacramento found him, knew I was looking for him, and then I eliminated him with DNA as the East Area rapist. And I was just like, I just spent 2 years of my life thinking this was the guy. Where did I go wrong? And that's when I started reassessing the case de novo. Okay, one of the things I did is we had 50 attacks up in Northern California, which he let his victims live. So we have victim statements about what he did in addition to what he said to them. So what I did is in chronological order, across 3 years worth of 50 sexual assaults, I put every single statement the victims said he told them in chronological order. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, I see what he's doing. He would say something like, in one attack, you don't do what I say, I'll kill you like I did a couple down in Bakersfield. And then 2 weeks later, he basically said, if you call the police, I'll kill for the very first time. Well, what is it? 2 weeks ago, you said you killed somebody down Bakersfield, and now you're saying you'll kill for the very first time? Those are the types of things, when you see those statements in chronological order, it's like, oh, okay, he's lying to the victims. Well, why is he lying? Well, it's what I call verbal staging. What he is doing is he recognizes these victims are going to give statements to the investigators. So I'm going to feed the victims information to throw law enforcement off. So when somebody stages a crime, let's talk like with physical evidence, a scenario.
I actually
Husband
feel like
claims,
Scott did
he's
this a
cleaning his
lot.
gun accidentally.
So like lie to us so that we couldn't see what he was doing, right? As a criminal. I'm going to skip ahead on this.
And so anytime I got a prime suspect, I always wanted to see where they're living. I wanted to go eyes on if I could, just from afar under surveillance. Vehicles are driving, just to kind of assess, kind of their living environment. And drove up. Very last thing I did as a law enforcement officer was to drive up to D'Angelo's house so I could see where he lived, because it was like a prime suspect. And I parked on the curb across from the house, and his yard was immaculate. His car was super clean, and I was like, wow, fastidious, which was interesting because after he's arrested and I got inside his house, it was a pigsty.
So interesting.
So he's putting on a front, right? This is a facade, yet internally. So the same thing. He's putting on a facade and how his interactions are with people, but internally, it's a whole different story. So that that's an interesting aspect to him. But that was the reason. I just needed to see,
No, SK, and I hate to make this whole thing about Scott, but this is our personal story, so you guys can identify how these people can get into your life. Okay? Scott was here and he was doing his podcast, and he put all of his pens in order and put all these things in order. And I kind of made a joke. I was like, oh, you're kind of like OCD. He loved that people thought that he was OCD and obsessive and like super compulsive cleaning. Like he came here and he helped do the dishes and he cleaned the grates on the on our gas stove. And I was like, you do not have to do that. And he's like, no, I'm just like obsessive. I have to have things clean. The other story to that is twofold. Christine Cantrell says she cleaned his bathroom once and she wanted to vomit. It was just so dirty and he lived like a slob. But then and I would see him and his room would be a complete mess. I've seen his room down in Roseburg, and I've seen it at the property, both places, just completely packed full of stuff. He lives like a pack rat. But then he would still if I was doing a video call with him or something like that, he'd be cleaning the kitchen, he'd make sure that the living room was super clean. And so it was like Jekyll and Hyde almost with the cleaning thing. Some parts of his life were just a complete wreck and complete mess and complete chaos. And then other areas were completely obsessive and clean. It was just weird.
Assess where he was at. And of course it is to assess, okay, if we end up having to go under surveillance on this guy in order to get a DNA sample from him, what we call a surreptitious sample. What is the configuration of the neighborhood? Could this be accomplished here? But then I thought, what's the likelihood that he's the guy I've been looking for 24 years? And there's a chance, and I drove away after that. That was the last thing I did. The next day I'm turning my badge and gun in.
So talk about timing. That's crazy that it's literally the day before. But the fascination that his house, the assessment, of the outside and the inside, of how much that also was an echo and a reflection of the way that he showed up. Like, that's so fascinating that the psychology of how he was echoed his living space. Because when I heard it, I was like, why?
Yeah.
He destroyed so many other people's lives. And that's part of the frustration in terms of recognizing it took us so long to catch him. But in many ways, technology finally gave us a tool to identify him, whereas the previous technologies and
Think about,
you know, if these victims start getting so uncomfortable that that now
I think I might have passed up where I went.
And he'd brush the hair kind of away and then reorient attacks. But after the second daughter is born, he doesn't commit any more attacks that we know of.
I just wanted to hear the story about the daughters.
I mean, he was raping and killing women, and then you have daughters. Because I've heard you talk about how killers really do compartmentalize, and that they can show up in one way completely different in another.
Part of assessing D'Angelo and his family is the timeline, is that his oldest daughter wasn't born until after his second to last attack in 1981. And then he does an attack for 5 years after his oldest daughter was born. Then he does that last attack, Janelle Cruz, and then his second daughter is born after that. So his wife is like 7 months pregnant at the time of those two attacks. But after the second daughter is born, he doesn't commit any more attacks that we know of. You know, so there is a major life change that has happened in him. Now, is the fact that he's now the father of daughters influencing whether or not he's going to continue? You know, Sacramento did a good job at coaching them, get off social media now.
Oh, the daughters.
They still receive death threats just because part of the frustration in terms of recognizing it took us so long to catch him. But in many ways, technology finally gave us a tool to identify him, whereas the previous technologies and the previous investigative aspects couldn't, just because he was a good predator in terms of committing crimes.
It's hard to be a serial killer in social media world.
Any statements?
So his oldest daughter and her his grandkid, lived in his house. The two younger daughters were professional women at this point. One was an ER doc, the other was a postgraduate student. I walk out to the lobby in Sacramento, a homicide building, and these two women are sobbing. They can't believe that their dad has been arrested as this Golden State Killer. And, you know, you just think about how crushed they are. They didn't even know he had been a cop in the past.
Wow.
So
okay, you can stop that one there. I just felt like that was an interesting aspect to where these girls, that he didn't abuse them. They don't seem to be like sexually abused or whatever, what have you, right? Mm-hmm. Like these psychopaths can go in and out of what they want in that moment. And they just, at that moment, he decided he wanted a family. And so that's what he was going to get.
Well, again, it goes back to their moral code of what is good and right is only what is good and right for them in this world. Mm-hmm. That's it. And that can change. Their opinions can change. Their wants and their desires can change. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't change who they are, you know. So kind of like in rounding off my thoughts on this, and like I think we could probably do a whole nother show on psychopaths, because there's so much to cover here. But like, as far as like how to spot them, I want to sum it up like this. Whether they're a friend or a coworker or your pastor or whatever, they're going to seem larger than life. Mm-hmm. They're going to seem way bigger than, you know, like, and they're going to make you feel special to be in their life. Mm-hmm. Right? You're special to be in their life because they are this great thing. Mm-hmm. They're really good at this. They're really good at that. They can do all these things.
Right.
They're going to make you feel special because they're going to know you intimately. They're going to be able to mirror you. They're going to be able to compliment you in all the ways that you want to feel complimented. And then you're going to see the shift.
Yeah.
You're going to see things move. And, you know, what I didn't hit on here tonight was, and I was sitting here and I'm processing, because every healing for the fractured soul is healing for me. It's healing for Leah. And I hope it's healing for you guys too. And I hope that you're doing and assessing like I am as I'm listening and allowing the Holy Spirit to speak to me. And I was thinking a lot about, you know, this fear, how these guys want to inflict fear. They want to inflict fear. They want to inflict fear. And I'm like, God, you know, that's not something that I felt like Scott ever really wanted to inflict fear into me. That wasn't. But I remember several times, and not just several times. So I lived in a constant state of fear while I was with Scott. because I was afraid that I was going to get caught, that you were going to read messages or something like that. So like every single like moment of every day, every time I'm talking to him, I'm living in this like
that was
constant
just like
state
another
of fear.
level of inflicting fear.
That's what I'm saying. But he knew it. And I believe truly, and I'm just figuring this out tonight as I'm watching this. I'm watching the show. I'm the show you're watching, and I'm watching it with you, and I'm watching these shows.
His whole thing was to inflict
It was,
fear.
I was literally, for 14 months, I lived in a constant state of fear. That's really why I left him, because I couldn't handle it anymore. I couldn't live like that anymore. Like I needed the freedom.
You had no idea.
I didn't know that he was inflicting
you were
it.
You were afraid.
Yes, and he still had that control of fear. So it's not always, again, we need to be able to think outside the box when we're talking to these people. It's not always like he's going to hold his hand around your throat and say, you have to do what I say, or he's not going to always like yell, like that person said, drive crazy and
because
put you at risk.
You wouldn't tolerate that.
Exactly. So he's still getting this high on me living in fear. And I remember several times when we do these stupid God bridges, but they're not, I hate to use the word stupid. I say stupid because I want to diminish it, but it was a very significant part of our relationship is, there were so many times I'm just processing this as we're doing the show tonight. And he would, we look into each other's eyes and, this is all spiritual. This is all necromancing, by the way. This is, what's the word we use for it? Shamanism. The other one, something else. And what do you see? And so a lot of times he would say, and I would say, what do you see in my eyes? And he would say, fear.
No way.
Yeah.
So he got off on fear.
Yeah, but I wasn't afraid of him.
Right.
But just fear of the situation.
Doesn't matter.
And I'll tell you my number one fear.
Make you afraid because you are a confident person. What these people enjoy doing, the psychopaths want to do is they want to take your goodness. They want to take... Right. And they want to take joy. They look for the happiest kid on the playground. Right. Right? Because they steal the joy. And so what Scott Kesterson would do is so he learned what is your greatest fear.
And they were it was multifaceted, because there were some times when I would say, I don't know what I'm afraid. I don't know why I'm afraid, right? In this situation. I don't know, like why are you afraid? I don't know why I'm afraid. There's different levels of fear. There's afraid that you're going to leave me, right? There's afraid that because they hold that over you too. But then deep down inside, my biggest fear, there was two big fears in this. My biggest fear was that I was going to have to be with Scott. That's at the depths of my being. That's my biggest fear, right? But then a level above that is the complete opposite. And my biggest fear is I'm going to have to leave him. I'm going to have to get out of this spell. And I knew that. And that was actually the healthiest part of me, where it was like I had this fear that it was all going to fall apart and that it was all going to end. But that was the part of me that was like, Michelle, you have to go through that door, no matter how scary it feels, no matter how scary it seems. And that's the door that I ended up going through. But all of it. So as I'm sitting here tonight and I'm processing this whole show, and you know what? Maybe the whole show is just for Michelle and you guys are just observing it. That's fine. But I have a sneaking feeling that you all can insert your own SK in this, because everybody's got one. Everybody has one in some form or another. It's not always male to female. Sometimes your own parents were your SK, and that's really sad. Sometimes your kids are your SK. There's sometimes your boss is this. So sometimes you have a best friend. That's a lot of times, actually. You don't realize how many of you have an SK as a best friend.
God has not given us a spirit of fear, but power, love, and a sound mind, because fear brings torment. And the essence of why a human would want to torment you is why the devil wants to torment you. The devil wants to get you into fear because it's the opposite of faith, and it is by faith that we live.
Amen.
And so the devil comes to steal, to kill, and to destroy. If he can suck life out of a regular person, that's great. If he can suck life out of a Christian, if he can get a Christian to not walk in faith but walk in fear, then that's how the devil, why do psychopaths get off on hurting people? Because the devil, however demons get pleasure, the devil gets pleasure on harming God's children the most. Amen. That's why the devil gets pleasure on harming children the most. And so the most innocent, the most pure, he wants to get you trapped. He wants to get you in fear, because that faith is actually harming the kingdom of darkness. That faith is taking from him. It's that gnawing feeling. It's the fingers on the chalkboard. Every time somebody comes into the kingdom, another demon is sent to hell. Another demon's losing power and control when a soul is saved. And so if you can try to garner back what it is that soul stole from the kingdom of darkness.
Right.
That's what you're going to do. The devil's trying to get back what Jesus took at Calvary. That's why he attacks us. That's why he embodies these psychopaths and sociopaths and narcissists. And so our prayer is that we would not allow the enemy to use us in any way that would harm somebody in any way, right? And then that God would set us free from everybody who's trying to harm us, to pull us into darkness, which is exactly what a psychopath or sociopath is trying to do, is pull you into darkness.
Amen. That's good. All right. So we are going to do our drawing. And while I get these names together, because I wrote them on sheets of paper that I have to rip in half here, we are running our sale on shop.resistancechicks.com. Now, we were for the weekend.
While you take everybody to the store.
Yeah. So we were doing our sale until yesterday on our Healing for the Souls. That sale is now over. It was save $5 on the Healing for the Soul or the Armor of God essential oil blends. For the next 7 days, from today until Monday, we are having our sale on our body butters, which is super exciting for me. So I'm going to do a screen share here, and we're going to go together to shop.resistancechicks.com while Leah gets the names up. If you go to, whether it is the Armor of God beard butter, whether it is the beef tallow homestead hands, and I need to take this sign off here because I didn't have time to edit that, and I'm sorry about that. And there's the iPillow sale that is still going on, which is such a great deal. No matter what it is, let's go to Hope the Heifer. We'll just use this one. The beef tallow face and body butter homestead hands. Right now, you have to actually click on it really to see the price because it's in there. It's unfortunately there, but
so it's normally $35 to $90.
$35. Now it's 30. You put it in the cart, it's $30. You can see that. But 2 jars are, instead of $64, are $56.50. Now here's why this is significant. In the buy more, save more. You're still getting 10% off this whole order. So the $30 jar is actually $27, and the 2 jars for $56.50, you're getting 10% off of that, which is $5.60. So do that math. And then you split that in half. I think that the jars at that point are like $25, $26. And then if you buy 3 jars in the buy more, save more, they're $80. Plus you get 10% off of that, which is $8. So now they're $72 for 3 jars. Like, this is crazy deal that we're giving, that we're running this week. Now, somebody just made a purchase today of the 3 jars. I am going to refund you because I had not launched this sale yet. So you can expect a refund. If you don't want a refund, because I forget who it is, I didn't get a chance to look, and I can just send you an extra product, whatever, happy to do that. But so this is great deal. Now, you can do the mix or match on here. So there should be an option to, the mix or match 2 jars or mix or match 3 jars. Put that in the note right there. Mix and match our lard and tallard armor of God. Please give us your choices in the quote note section at the checkout. Somebody did that just today. Thank you for following instructions. You're really good. So you could get 1 of each. You could get 2 of one of another. Mix or match the beard butter, the tallow, and the lard version. So that's super exciting. So that's going on right now at shop.resistancechicks.com. So our sale for the next 7 days is going to be on our body butters, which I am super excited about because it's one of my favorite products, which of course I say that about all the products, but I use that one every day throughout the day on my face, on my whole body. I am using it with DMSO on my back, not going to lie, because there's so many good essential oil blends in the body butters. Like, I wanted to even talk about
if you buy 2 or more, they're basically $10 off.
I know, that's crazy. I think they're like $24. What's 72 divided by 3?
Something like that.
It's crazy. So crazy deal. The body butters have 24. The top essential oils in the Healing for the Soul and in the Armor of God in them. So you're getting the same hormone balancing essential oils and the things that are good for your face in the body butters, which is amazing. So they're not just, and this is what I tell people when I show them these products in person. I'm like, guys, other people have body butters and they have some essential oils to kind of help with your skin or whatever. Ours have hormone balancing essential oils. I'm not making any kind of claims, but I put it in there because that's what I wanted in there. Gotcha?
And I will say that even throughout the whole month, the very best deal that you're going to get is 10% off the whole collections because the collections are already discounted.
You can put those in here.
Sure.
Okay, so we're going to do our drawing. We're going to draw 2 names.
Okay,
one.
you'll have to draw now.
Because you mixed them?
Yeah.
One for the whole collection and then one for the book. Okay, ready?
Yep.
I feel bad I dropped that one. Megan! All right, so Megan, you won the whole collection. That's awesome.
Yay, Megan.
I think Megan wanted the female one.
Okay.
I think. All right. And Sharon, congratulations. Sharon, you won the book. So Sharon, you're getting the Prayers That Shake Heaven book. And Megan, you're getting the whole collection. So that's super exciting. Congratulations. We do have a little letter to open. You want to open it now?
Unless you want to do it on Fridays.
We can do it on Friday.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So thank you guys for all of your support. I do want to give you an update on Coalition Reloaded. Randall's wife, Desiree, we prayed for her on the show the other day. She is sick, and Randall is taking a step back from Coalition Reloaded and doing all the songs for a while. Just pray for them. But the songs are still available on coalitionreloaded.com, on the Resistance Chicks music page, and Coalition Reloaded's Facebook page. So there are over 300 songs on their Facebook page.
Wow.
So it's okay. I actually need the time to catch up on the music. So God, we thank you for Desiree. I thank you that you're healing her from the top of her head to the soles of her feet. I thank you for all the things that you're doing in both Randall and Desiree, that they are on the forefront of spreading the gospel and tearing down the kingdom of darkness. So we just thank you that you're going to protect them and that you're going to keep them in the shadow of your wing.
Amen.
In Jesus' name we pray, amen. And we also lift up Jim, who had to go tonight, but he had a biopsy today on his face. He's got a very big protruding thing. He thought it was an abscess tooth, but they don't think that it is. He had 4 doctors there. I was reading his email. So God, we just lift up Jim to you.
Be healed in the name of Jesus.
And I thank you for complete healing, that the biopsy is going to come out completely clean, that there's no cancer in the name of Jesus, that it's whatever it is, that they're going to be able to fix it.
Amen.
In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right. We love you guys. God loves you. God bless. Remember, it's not just a conspiracy theory. If it's actually the truth, I hope that you enjoyed tonight's show. I think it was super fascinating, a little bit different of a divergence from normal. Megan's in the chat. She says, I'm so excited. Thank you. That's awesome. Congratulations, Megan. It's going to probably be a couple of days because I have a lot of orders that are waiting on my labels. You're probably, a lot of 4-ounce bottles are just going to get 2-ounce labels because they were supposed to be here today and they didn't. And I've been waiting to ship them for the proper labels. So you're all just going to get 2-ounce labels. And I apologize.
But you're getting 4-ounce bottles.
But you're getting a 4-ounce bottle. Because I literally have I want to say 8 or 9 packages sitting there ready to be mailed. Except for that. And so a lot of those that we're going to be walking in the postman, like we've been at the Christmas workshop. I had one more thing that I wanted to tell you guys, but now I can't remember what it is. But, tomorrow night we will be doing a Revelation Red Pill. Not sure what it's going to be about yet, but we do have a lot of things that we could be talking about. And Corey Gray wants to come back on the show. So I told him at the start of the year, we'll get Corey back on the show. So you guys can be looking forward to that. He's been on fire lately with his posts and things we've shared have gone viral. So super proud of Corey and what he's doing. And he also has some other stuff that he's doing tech-wise. So please feel free to go and follow Corey Gray's page because he's doing a lot of good work over there. So, all right. We love you guys. God loves you. God bless. You are amazing. I hope you have a wonderful, blessed rest of your week. Thank you. Oh, today is Giving Tuesday. I don't really believe in that at all.
No, it's a
you do not
deal.
need to give to us, but I did think to myself, we got to give our collection on Giving Tuesday, and I thought that was really fun because it's much more blessed to give than to receive. But thank you to all of you who already give to us, not on a Tuesday. Although someone did today, actually. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Somebody made a donation. You can, if you do want to donate, you can do so at resistancechicks.com. Just click on the support button. But to all of our monthly donators and people that just randomly give us donations.
You had me sign.
Thank you.
2, and we'll talk about this tomorrow, 2 of the
diplomas.
And I was like, this is so cool. I said it every time I sign one of these, it makes me want to cry. Like, you guys appreciate, you value.
Yeah.
The information, especially some of the deep dives that we do. It is college level, in my opinion, and you guys value that information. So.
Well, and tomorrow I'll tell you who it is, who the diploma people are. We'll save it for tomorrow. The 2 that got them, so you can be really proud and congratulate them. We should do that. Actually, we should congratulate people when they get their diplomas.
We should.
All right, we will see you guys tomorrow night. 8. We're going to try to do our shows earlier. Leah wants to try to do them earlier. Best plans laid. What's that saying? made plans. We try. We really do. For our own sake, we need to do them earlier, but also for you guys. All right, we'll see you next time right here from resistancechicks.com. God bless, guys.